Chapter 114. What? He is the one who killed the 4 great elders of the wind, thunder, lightning, and cloud pavilion. No wonder he dared to kill our wind thunder pavilion's elders in front of so many people. In the wind thunder pavilion area, the disciples of the wind thunder pavilion once again looked at Chu Bei. Other than hatred, there was more fear in their eyes. Every time Chu Bei took a step forward, the disciples of the wind thunder pavilion around him would quickly retreat by dozens of steps, as if they were afraid that the former would suddenly attack. Xiao xiao xiao. At this moment, a number of air-breaking sounds appeared in the sky, following which, the Do Wangs of the Han family led by Han Qi landed and followed closely behind Chu Bei. If they did not have the intention to kill me, how would I have killed them? Chu Bei smiled as he looked at Fei Tian, the pavilion chief of Fenglei Beige. He quickly arrived at the edge of the call and occupied an area. I am very curious, which faction do you come from? Being able to kill the 4 great elders of the North Pavilion, I think that you are not unknown in the Central Plains. Fei Tian narrowed his eyes and coldly stared at Chu Bei. From his point of view, Chu Bei was an old monster who had lived for at least a few hundred years. The reason why he looked so young was only because he had changed his appearance. It was also because he was afraid of Chu Bei's strength that even though he had the intention to kill, he forcefully endured it and did not make a move. At the edge of the call, the other 3 pavilions, as well as the experts from other factions, shifted their gazes back and forth between Fei Tian and Chu Bei. Their expressions were as if they were watching a show. I don't have any background. I am just an ordinary merchant. Meeting Fei Tian's gaze, Chu Bei shrugged and said calmly, Merchant? Fei Tian's expression became ugly. He thought that Chu Bei was playing with him and said in a deep voice, Then what do you sell? If you really want to know, let's sit down and have some tea when you're free and talk about it slowly. After saying that, Chu Bei ignored Fei Tian and stared at the colorful ball of light in the valley. Rumble. Just as Fei Tian was about to say something, the huge 7-colored ball of light suddenly shook, and a deafening sound came from it. What's that sound? Could it be that a treasure is about to be born? I wonder what kind of treasure it is. As the sound from the rainbow ball grew louder and louder, the entire mountain valley began to shake violently as if an earthquake had occurred. The group of experts stabilized themselves. Not only was there no panic on their faces, but there was also a strong sense of anticipation. Even the murderous Fei Tian shifted his attention from Chu Bei to the ball of light. Activating the Opportunities Tower. Progress, 89%. Chu Bei immediately checked the system interface when he saw the ball of light begin to vibrate slightly. Just as the activation bar reached 90%, a glaring beam of light suddenly shot out from the top of the huge ball of light. The beam of light shot into the sky and extended far away. Immediately after, a gorgeous 7-colored stream of light appeared on the surface of the ball of light. When the stream of light entered the body, it instantly made one feel refreshed and comfortable. Look, what are those? It's really a phenomenon. Gradually, the light film began to become transparent, and they could vaguely see part of the scene inside the ball of light. All kinds of divine beasts could be seen galloping and dancing. However, these divine beasts were not in their true forms. Instead, they were like illusions or projections. Not long after they appeared, they would dissipate and new divine beasts would appear. Activating the Opportunities Tower. Progress, 96%. Activating the Opportunities Tower. Progress, 97%. Activating the Opportunities Tower. Progress, 98%. In the system interface, the Opportunities Tower's progress was increasing at a speed visible to the naked eye. When the progress reached 100%, there was a loud bang and the huge ball of light in the valley exploded. The glaring divine light instantly enveloped the entire area within 100 miles. Fortunately, this glaring divine light did not cause any harm to the human body. It would only temporarily deprive people of their vision. Kacha, kacha. A crisp, shattering sound rang in countless people's ears. Although they could not see everything around them clearly, they could guess that this was the 7-colored ball of light shattering. As time passed, the glaring divine light gradually dissipated, and everyone's vision became clear again. This is When the group of powerhouses saw the scene in the valley clearly, they could not help but open their mouths and stare in shock. This was a gigantic object that was as tall as the clouds. Its bottom took up 90% of the huge valley, and it gradually closed in from the bottom to the top. However, it was not obvious that it was closing in. If one did not look closely, they would even think that this was a gigantic object that was always the same height and width. It was like a tower, but it was impossible to tell how many levels it had. This was because other than the 8 levels that could be seen with the naked eye, everything above was shrouded by a mysterious force and could not be seen clearly. As for the 8 floors that could be seen with the naked eye, each floor had 8 corners, and each corner had a small and exquisite statue of a divine beast. The walls of the pagoda were also engraved with mysterious and strange patterns that dazzled the eyes. How can it be a tower? The group of powerhouses gradually recovered from their shock and stared blankly at the gigantic object in the valley. Their eyes were filled with confusion. Originally, they had expected that this ball of light would be born from a rare spiritual plant, or a spiritual milk of heaven and earth that had taken tens of thousands of years to form, or a heavenly flame, or some other natural treasure. Who would have thought that it would be a strange, gigantic tower? Looking carefully, there were 8 tightly shut doors on each of the 8 floors that could be seen, and they just so happened to correspond to the 8 corners of the room. However, the difference was that the doors on the 7th and 8th levels were emitting a faint purple light, while the doors on the 1st to 6th levels were not different at all. At the same time that the gigantic tower appeared, a human-shaped iron lump appeared beside Chu Bei. "Boss Chu, what is this?" Han Yu, who was the first to notice the iron lump, could not help but exclaim. "It's something that I made in my spare time." Chu Bei glanced at the iron lump beside him. Just from the appearance alone, it was exactly the same as Xiao Hei's real body in the shop. "Boss, isn't this the big guy in the corner of the shop? When did you bring it out?" The little fairy doctor and Qing Lin, who had just arrived in the flying ship, immediately saw Xiao Hei's clone. Their beautiful eyes were filled with astonishment. In their memories, they did not bring this big guy with them when they left. Even the powerhouses of the 4 pavilions would have a hard time taking this tower away. Who said that we have to take it away? We can totally occupy this area and use it as a foundation to build a branch pavilion. But then again, what exactly is this tower used for? I'm afraid we can only find out after we enter the tower. Why don't we go in and take a look? The people in the square pavilion haven't even moved yet, and you're already in front of them. Aren't you courting death? Beside the call, a group of powerhouses began to discuss intensely. At the same time, regardless of whether it was the Wind Thunder Pavilion's Fei Tian, Wanjian Pavilion's Jianheng, or the other 2 deputy pavilion heads, all of them extended a thread of divine consciousness toward the huge tower in the kernel. How can this be? What shocked Fei Tian, Jianheng, and the other leaders of the square pavilion was that the divine consciousness they sent toward the huge tower did not return. Not only the 4 of them, but the powerhouses from the other factions, such as Hongli, also sent out their divine consciousness. The result was the same. Immediately, the faces of the powerhouses became a little more solemn. Unknown things often had unpredictable risks. Even the eyes of the 8-star dozongs like Fei Tian and Jianheng had an additional caution. Xiu, the Huangquan Pavilion's deputy pavilion head, Yu Hong, rose into the air and flew toward the distant sky. Seeing this, Fei Tian, Jianheng, and the other powerhouses seemed to have understood Yu Hong's intention. After being momentarily stunned, they also flew toward the sky. When the group of Do Wangs arrived in the sky, the shock on their faces became even greater. They had originally wanted to see the entire tower from the sky. Unexpectedly, no matter how high they flew, they were unable to see the top of the tower. The energy that wrapped around the 9th floor of the huge tower seemed to have penetrated the sky. It was so high that it could not be reached. Helpless, Yu Hong, Fei Tian, and the others could only once again descend to the edge of the Colonel Brother Fei. "Since you said that your Wind Thunder Pavilion was the first to discover this tower, I'll give you the first opportunity to enter the tower." The Huangquan Pavilion's deputy pavilion head, Yu Hong, opened his mouth and said, "Brother, you really knows how to joke. Didn't you say that it is not in the area of my Wind Thunder Pavilion? It's all for the capable." Fei Tian looked at Yu Hong and said with a smile, "Why don't we give you the opportunity to enter the tower first?" Instantly, the powerhouses of the square pavilion gave way to each other, hoping that the other three parties could enter the tower first. Unfortunately, regardless of whether it was Fei Tian, Yu Hong, or the other two pavilion heads, all of them were experienced and did not want to be the first to enter the tower. After all, the appearance of this huge tower was too strange. No one knew how dangerous it was. Why don't we go together? In the end, after giving way to each other, Fei Tian, Yu Hong, and the other two decided to enter the tower together. After making the decision, the four of them looked at each other. Then, their figures flashed at the same time and flew toward the huge tower. However, before the four of them could get close to the huge tower, a figure stood in front of them and blocked their path. "What do you mean by this?" Fei Tian stopped and coldly looked at Chu Bei in front of him. A murderous intent once again surfaced in his eyes. "Don't tell me that you want to enter the tower with us? If that's the case, we don't mind," Yu Hong of the Huangquan Pavilion said as he sized up Chu Bei. Chu Bei's gaze swept across Fei Tian, Yu Hong, and the other two. He shook his head and said, "This tower is not somewhere you can enter as you wish." Yu Hong frowned slightly. "From what you've said, it seems that you know this tower. Could it be that there's really danger inside?" Chu Bei smiled and shook his head again. "Not only is there no danger inside, but there are also endless opportunities. Therefore, this tower has a name, the Tower of Opportunities. Since there's no danger, why can't we enter?" Hearing Chu Bei's words, Yu Hong and the others were overjoyed. "I said you can't enter because this tower has an owner. If you want to enter the tower, you have to follow my rules and get my permission." Chu Bei looked calmly at Yu Hong and the other three. Although his voice was not loud, it clearly reached the ears of everyone near the colonel. "What? That guy actually said that this tower has an owner, and it's his. Is he joking? So many of us saw it with our own eyes. This should be just an excuse he found to occupy this tower. Then we'll have to see if he alone has the ability to get past the square pavilion." Chu Bei's words instantly caused an uproar near the colonel. The words of the surrounding experts were filled with dissatisfaction. Boss Chu's style of doing things this time is somewhat similar to that of Shunya. Looking at Chu Bei, who was blocking the path of Fei Tian and the other three in midair, Han Chi's eyes showed some worry. The appearance of this giant tower was something he had warned the other party early in the morning. On the other hand, Little Doctor and Qing Lin looked at each other with puzzlement on their faces. This was because in their opinion, Chu Bei had everything. Moreover, based on their understanding of Chu Bei, he was not the kind of person who would claim that an ownerless object was his. "Are you joking with us?" Fei Tian's cold in the forest gaze was fixed on Chu Bei. The anomaly in this call was first discovered by the disciples of the Wind Thunder Pavilion. "As for this tower, we saw it appear with our own eyes. Now you're saying that this tower is yours? Brother Fei, why are you wasting your breath on this kind of guy?" Wanjian Pavilion's Jianheng looked at Chu Bei expressionlessly. After a cold snort, he flipped his right hand, and a red thin sword appeared in his palm. Under the gaze of several people, Jianheng slapped the end of the sword's hilt with his palm. Suddenly, the sword swept toward Chu Bei like lightning. Just as the thin sword was about to hit Chu Bei, it suddenly split into 9. In a moment, 9 identical thin swords were distributed in a ring, surrounding Chu Bei in the middle. Then, the tips of the 9 long swords flashed with silver light at the same time, and sword rays appeared. Immediately, the space around Chu Bei suddenly distorted a little. Soon after, a purple fog appeared rapidly, and finally condensed into a purple prison more than a foot thick. The inner surface of the prison was densely covered with sharp sword rays, and the buzzing sound was frightening. "This is the 9 Swords Cage?" As soon as the purple prison appeared, Fei Tian, Yu Hong, and the others blurted out in surprise, "Brother Jian, I didn't expect you to have already learned this move. It seems that you're not far from advancing to the next level." Xingyun Gu Sherbin looked at Jianheng and said, "Wanjian Pavilion mainly focused on swordsmanship. There were several famous sword moves in the pavilion, and the 9 Swords Cage was one of them. Your Excellency, you can stay inside for now." Jianheng looked at Chu Bei mockingly, and then looked at Fei Tian and the others. Let's go inside the tower and see what opportunities there are. However, just as Jianheng finished speaking and before he could move, a 2-meter-tall human-shaped metal lump appeared out of thin air beside Chu Bei in the Nine Swords cage. The human iron lump slowly raised his right arm and casually punched. Boom. However, it was this seemingly light and soft punch that directly ignored the sharp purple sword light and hit the prison wall. First, there was a loud bang, and then there was the crisp sound of something shattering. In just a few seconds, the foot-thick purple prison layer shattered, turning into countless pieces of purple light and disappearing. Witnessing this scene, the mockery in Jianheng's eyes was instantly replaced by shock, and there was even some suspicion on his face. He suspected that there was something wrong with the Nine Swords cage. Fei Tian and the others beside him were also shocked, and their faces were full of disbelief. Chapter 115. The Nine-Sword Prison was one of the profound sword techniques of Wanjian Pavilion. Only those who had broken through to the Do Zone class had the right to practice it. With Jianheng's strength, even an 8-star Do Zone would not be able to break it in a short period of time. However, this iron lump, who had appeared out of nowhere, was able to completely shatter it with just one punch. In the air, Jianheng regained his calm. He glanced at the smiling Chu Bei and waved his right hand. Once again, a long sword appeared in his hand. Compared to the thin purple sword that had used the Nine-Sword Prison, this long sword was clearly more exquisite. Jianheng held the long sword in his hand and began to dance. Every time the long sword was swung, a huge force would condense at the tip of the sword. This force continued to accumulate until the golden sword light at the tip was as bright as the sun. This is the Nine-Sword style stacked sword. Seeing Jianheng's dancing figure and the increasingly sharp sword force, Fei Tian and the other two exclaimed once again. The Nine-Sword style was a sword technique that only the Pavilion Master and the Vice Pavilion Master of Wanjian Pavilion could practice. It was extremely difficult to practice. Even among the Pavilion Masters, there were very few who could practice it to its peak. The reason why the Wanjian Pavilion's Nine-Sword style was so famous was because the Pavilion Master who had created this sword technique had once killed a 7-star Do Zone with the cultivation of a 4-star Do Zone who had crossed 3 small realms. The stacked sword was the move with the strongest killing force in the Nine-Sword style. Chu Bei calmly looked at Jianheng and felt the sword force on his sword. The stacked sword that his opponent had used was similar to the heaven-defying 7 Demon Blade in terms of concept. As the number of times Jianheng brandished the long sword in his hand increased, the golden light at the tip of the sword increased. When the sword force rose to the peak, the sword light actually intertwined into a flood dragon that seemed to be cast in gold. Let me see what you're capable of. As soon as his voice fell, Jianheng's figure flashed forward with the long sword in his hand. The tip of the sword pointed directly at Chu Bei. The tip of the sword vibrated, and the golden Jiao dragon formed by the sword light was the first to pounce on Chu Bei with lightning speed. In the face of such a murderous attack, Chu Bei's emotions did not fluctuate in the slightest, nor did he make any movements. Whoosh! The iron lump moved again. Turning into a black streak of light, he charged forward and threw out a punch. On the battlefield, the pitch-black fist collided with the golden Jiao dragon's mouth. Bang! Amidst the loud noise, the collision area was like a firework, extremely gorgeous. The terrifying shockwaves spread out like waves, causing the air to sizzle. In the next moment, the pitch-black fist pierced through the golden Jiao dragon with its mouth wide open. The energy from the fist landed on Jianheng's chest. Poochie! Caught off guard, Jianheng spat out a mouthful of blood. His face instantly turned pale. His figure was like a cannonball as he smashed into the ground, creating a deep crater. The golden Jiao dragon had also turned into a rain of light and dissipated into the void. So powerful. What the hell is that thing? With just one punch, not only did it break the attack of the Wanjian Pavilion's Deputy Pavilion Master, but it also seriously injured him. It should be a puppet. Even a puppet is so powerful. How terrifying is that guy's cultivation? With such strength, no wonder he dares to snatch the things that the square pavilion wants. Around the call, the cultivators who had witnessed the entire process were all agape. Their faces were filled with shock. In the air, Fei Tian, Yu Hong, and Shi Bin regained their senses and looked at the iron lump, who had returned to Chu Bei's side. Their eyes were filled with fear. So this big guy is so powerful. If one were to say who was the most astonished, it would be the little fairy doctor and Qing Lin. Ever since they had moved into the All Heavens shop, they had been in contact with Xiao He every day after cleaning the place. They had even used him as a rag rack. They had never imagined that the iron lump, who they used as a rag rack, could not only move, but also have such terrifying strength. Thinking of this, the little doctor and Qing Lin looked at each other with lingering fear. Fortunately, the iron lump did not hold it against them. Otherwise, they would have been smashed into meat paste. I already said that this thing has an owner. Don't covet it. Chu Bei glanced at Jianheng, who had flown back to the battlefield from the crater with his chest caved in. Seeing Xiao Hei's doppelganger attack, Chu Bei suddenly realized a problem. Every time the iron lump attacked, he would only severely injure his opponent and would not kill them with a single blow. Back in Wutan City, when Xiao Hei attacked Ling Ying, he had also spared his opponent's life. Now, this Xiao Hei's doppelganger did the same. However, there was one thing in common. Whether it was Xiao Hei or his doppelganger, they had all only used one punch. Hearing Chu Bei's words, Jianheng did not respond. Instead, he took out a jade pendant with a blood thread on it from his storage ring and crushed it. Seeing this, Fei Tian, Yu Hong, and Shi Bin looked at each other before also taking out small jade pendants and crushing them. Are they calling for reinforcements? Chu Bei could see the intentions of Jianheng and the others, and he could also guess the identity of the people who would be coming. After all, Fei Tian, Jianheng, and the other two statuses were already below only one person in the Four Directions Pavilion. Boom! In just a few short seconds, a huge thunderbolt suddenly swept down from the clouds above Fei Tian and the others. The strong light in that instant caused the people around the call to instinctively close their eyes. Chu Bei raised his eyes slightly and looked at the place where the huge thunderbolt appeared. He saw a figure slowly walking out. It was a tall man wearing a silver robe. The silver robe was covered with lightning patterns. From afar, it looked like a living creature that was constantly flowing. There was also a faint thunder might spreading from it. The East Pavilion Master of the Wind Thunder Pavilion, Lei the Venerable. Why is he here? It must be a message from the North Pavilion Master, Fei Tian. Around the call, some of the experienced and knowledgeable experts recognized the silver-robed man at a glance and immediately cried out in surprise. Whoosh, whoosh. After Lei the Venerable, two more figures quickly appeared. They were the West Pavilion Master and South Pavilion Master of the Wind Thunder Pavilion. Fei Tian, what's so urgent that you insist on having me here? Lei the Venerable scanned the surroundings. When he saw the All-Heaven Tower, his expression changed. Finally, his gaze stopped on Fei Tian. His voice was like thunder, mixed with the thunder might. Some of the weaker experts around the call could not help but tremble. Old man Lei, your voice is still so powerful. Just as Lei the Venerable finished speaking, an ear-piercing sound of wind breaking rang out in the sky. In the next moment, under countless shocked gazes, a huge sword that was 10 feet long cut open the void. A figure walked out from the gap. Compared to the Thunder Reverend, this was an old man with a short stature and dressed in sackcloth. Although the difference in size was huge, the power this short old man exuded was not inferior to Lei the Venerable. Old man sword, why are you here? Looking at the short old man who had appeared, Lei Zunja's eyes flashed with surprise. Not only him, I'm here too. Before Sword Venerable could speak, a strange laughter with a sinister tone rang out. Then, a pitch-black light suddenly appeared in the sky. It was an old man with a sinister look between his eyebrows. His eyes were different from ordinary people's. One was black and the other was white. Venerable Acheron, long time no see. Sword Venerable glanced at the black-robed old man and said indifferently. Venerable Acheron was about to reply to Sword Venerable when he suddenly felt something and looked towards the northwest with a sinister gaze. A sound like a dragon's roar suddenly rang out. Then, a huge green whirlwind tore through the void and appeared beside Sword Venerable. A figure walked out from the whirlwind. It was an old man wearing a green robe. His white hair draped over his shoulders, giving people a free and easy feeling. Perhaps it was because he cultivated wind-attributed battle energy, but his aura was somewhat ethereal and gave people a strange and unpredictable feeling. Lay the Venerable, Sword Venerable, Acheron, and Venerable Wind. They're all here. Haha, to be able to see these four, this trip was not in vain. For Venerable ones are here. I wonder if that guy will still claim that the tower belongs to him. Around the call, countless gazes were focused on Lay the Venerable's group of four. Everyone's faces were filled with excitement. For them, it was harder than ascending to heaven to see such people. But who would have thought that not only would they see one today, but they would also see four of them at the same time? After the arrival of the four Venerable ones, Han Chi, Han Yu, and the rest of the Han family's experts became even more worried. Previously, Chu Bei had killed the four elders of Fenglai Beige. It could be said that he was standing on the opposite side of the Wind Thunder Pavilion. And just now, Iron Lump, who was next to him, had severely injured the vice pavilion master of the Wanjian Pavilion, Jinheng. In this way, Chu Bei had directly offended two of the Square Pavilion's pavilions. Jinheng, why did you call me here? Sword Venerable looked at Jinheng, but when he noticed that Jinheng was severely injured, his face suddenly darkened. Who injured you? Sword Venerable's gaze swept across Fei Tian, Shi Bin, and Yu Hong as he shouted, filled with monstrous anger. Jinheng's figure flashed and flew to Sword Venerable's side. His lips moved slightly. Fei Tian, Shi Bin, and Yu Hong also flew to Lay the Venerable, Venerable Wind, and Acheron's side. They recounted what had happened in detail. Hearing this, Sword Venerable was the first to look at Chu Bei, following which, the other three Venerable Ones' gazes also landed on Chu Bei. Meeting the gazes of the four Venerable Ones, Chu Bei's emotions fluctuated for the first time. This was the first time he had faced Do Zun since he had transmigrated. If it weren't for the fact that he had the right to use a 9th-level product and Xiao He by his side, he wouldn't have been able to face the four Venerable Ones so calmly. Putting the pagoda aside, how do you plan to settle the matter of you killing the four elders of Fenglai Beige? Without waiting for Sword Venerable to speak, Lay the Venerable spoke first. His thunderous voice exploded in the sky. What do you think? Chu Bei's gaze met Lay the Venerable's. His voice was calm. Pay with your life. With a voice filled with killing intent, Lay the Venerable's body exploded with a terrifying energy wave. Accompanied by a cold shout, this energy wave surged toward Chu Bei like a torrential river. Chu Bei didn't bat an eyelid. Because he had the system, this so-called pressure was useless against a Do Zun. Even the pressure of a Do Emperor of this plane was useless against him. Chapter 116. Old Man Lay, I'll leave that guy to you. As for the puppet that severely injured Jinheng, leave it to me. After the Sword Venerable glanced at Lay the Venerable, his gaze locked onto Xiao He's doppelganger beside Chu Bei. Fine, I'll share one with you. As Lay the Venerable's loud voice fell, rolling thunder appeared around his body. In the next moment, Lay the Venerable and Sword Venerable's figures disappeared at the same time. When they reappeared, they were already in front of Chu Bei and Xiao He respectively. After reaching the Do Zun realm, one could cross the void and activate the power of space. Seeing Lay the Venerable in front of him, Chu Bei was about to retreat, but Xiao He had already appeared in front of him. Then, a strange mechanical sound came from within Xiao He's doppelganger. Immediately after, Xiao He's doppelganger shook violently as if it had a life of its own. A black fog appeared all over its body. When the black fog dissipated, Xiao He's doppelganger seemed to have evolved. Its body was covered with a layer of black fog armor. At the same time, two red lights shot out from its eyes. A violent and terrifying aura spread out. Roar. A loud roar that seemed to have come from ancient times resounded in this space. The terrifying sound wave reverberated around the entire Heaven Eye mountain range, shaking the surrounding trees and mountains to the point of shattering. At this moment, Xiao He's doppelganger was like a primordial beast that had just woken up from a deep sleep. The roar was filled with heart-palpitating cruelty and brutality. It seemed to be filled with endless destruction and slaughter. The source of the roar seemed to represent the world's most terrifying calamity. Feeling the terrifying and strange energy fluctuation released by Xiao Hei's doppelganger, Lei the Venerable and Sword Venerable's expressions changed drastically. However, before they could hide in the void, Xiao Hei's doppelganger had already raised his arms and slapped at the two of them. With no time to hesitate, Lei the Venerable and Sword Venerable hurriedly mobilized the energy in their bodies to form a defensive wall. Bang! Bang! Despite that, the defensive walls formed by the two venerable ones seemed to be nothing in the face of Xiao Hei's clone's fists. In an instant, it shattered into nothingness. Xiao Hei's fists landed on Lei the Venerable's and Sword Venerable's chests. With a low muffled sound, two figures were sent flying. They pierced through the void and crashed into the mountain wall. From the moment Xiao Hei stood in front of Chu Bei to the moment he sent the two venerable ones flying with a punch, the entire process was so fast that it took only a split second. After dealing with the two venerable ones, the black fog around Xiao Hei's body disappeared, and he returned to Chu Bei's side. Dealing with two venerable ones, he only used one punch. That iron lump's strength is so terrifying that even venerable ones can't be bothered with it. Is there still a Dozun puppet in this world? Looking at the two miserable figures in the mountain, the faces of the powerhouses around the call who witnessed the entire process instantly turned gray. Each of them felt as if they had been struck by a bolt from the blue, or as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over them from head to toe. Their entire bodies went numb. How is this possible? Fei Tian, Jin Hong, and the others murmured. Their faces were filled with bewilderment, as if they had been struck by lightning. They looked like clay statues. They could not believe that even venerable ones could not defeat the uniquely shaped iron lump. Venerable Wind and Acheron stared at Xiao Hei's doppelganger vigilantly. Their bodies were as tense as a rock, and their hearts were as heavy as lead. When the two of them glanced at Sword Venerable and Lei the Venerable, whose breathing was chaotic and extremely weak, there was a hint of relief in their eyes. "Daddy, it seems like we really don't have to worry about Boss Chu." Han Yu's throat moved. Her brain seemed to have lost the ability to think. She stood there motionlessly like a piece of wood, staring blankly at Chu Bei and Xiao Hei's doppelganger in the air. At that moment, all of the people that witnessed this scene were stunned. This result was too sudden and unexpected. It was hard for them to react in time. The two venerable ones of the square pavilion were defeated by an iron lump that they had never heard of before. After a long time, the heavily injured Lei the Venerable and Sword Venerable finally flew out of the mountain. The two of them returned to their original positions. When they looked at Xiao Hei's doppelganger again, there was only fear in their eyes. The mysteries of the Heaven's Meat Pagoda has been prepared. Host, you can begin to sell it. The 7th level of the pagoda is limited to 100 people. Each person is limited to 2 hours. Cultivation requirement, Fighting Emperor or below. The 8th level of the pagoda is limited to 50 people. Each person is limited to 4 hours. Cultivation requirement, Fighting Emperor or above. As the system's voice rang out, Chu Bei realized that he had another connection with the mysteries of the Heaven's Meat Pagoda behind him. Do you still want this pagoda now? Chu Bei's gaze swept across Fei Tian, Jin Hong, and the others. Hearing Chu Bei's words, Fei Tian, Jin Hong, and the others' expressions were extremely ugly. However, no one dared to refute him. There was an ancient saying that a wise man submits to circumstances. They had already seen with their own eyes that even a venerable one was heavily injured by the iron lump. How could they still dare to covet the pagoda? This pagoda is called the Opportunity Pagoda. I spent many years to create it. I only let it appear in the world today. At this point, Chu Bei's gaze swept across the powerhouses around the colonel. There are opportunities in the pagoda, but I'm also a businessman. If you want to enter the pagoda, you naturally have to buy the right to enter the pagoda. Right now, I've opened 2 levels. For the 7th level, the entry fee is 5 million gold coins. For the 8th level, the entry fee is 10 million gold coins. Those who enter the 7th level can stay for a maximum of 2 hours. Those who enter the 8th level can stay for a maximum of 4 hours. Once the time is up, you'll be forcefully sent out of the pagoda. As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Bei waved his sleeve. Immediately, a buzzing sound came from the huge pagoda in the kernel. The energy ripples on the 8th level surged and converged into a beam of light that connected to Chu Bei's body. At first glance, the current Chu Bei seemed to be connected to the huge pagoda. Chu Bei waved his hand again. With a boom, the tightly shut doors on the 7th and 8th levels opened at the same time. Although the doors were open, there was a layer of blurry ripples at the entrance. It was still impossible to see clearly what was inside the pagoda. Oh my God, this pagoda really belongs to him. Then, what he said just now is true too. As long as we have the money, we can enter? Looking at the energy ripples on Chu Bei's body that were connected to the Opportunity Pagoda, as well as the 18 doors on 2 levels that suddenly opened, the powerhouses around the call were first stunned. When they came back to their senses, they exclaimed in shock. Boss Chu really isn't that kind of person. We've misunderstood him. Han Qi and Han Yu looked at each other. Fei Tian, Jian Heng, and the rest were shocked. At the same time, their eyes were filled with confusion. They were the ones who discovered this treasure land first. In the end, it was just as the other party had said. It had an owner. If that was the case, why did the pagoda have to appear in the vast mountain range? Those who want the opportunity, why aren't you paying to enter the pagoda? Chu Bei's gaze swept across the crowd. The corner of his lips curled up as he continued, however. I'll say this first. Although there are many opportunities in the pagoda, if you're unlucky, there's a high possibility that you'll end up empty-handed after 2 or 4 hours. Therefore, in the end, everything still depends on your own luck. With that, Chu Bei was ready to start collecting money. 10 seconds, 30 seconds, 50 seconds. Unfortunately, a full 3 minutes had passed since Chu Bei finished speaking, and there was still no one around the call who stepped forward. Although the powerhouses were eager to move, no one was the first to do so. Although 10 million or 5 million was not a small amount, most of them could afford it. They did not dare to try. Perhaps they were waiting for the first person, or perhaps they were afraid of Chu Bei and his clone, Xiao He, or perhaps they were afraid that Chu Bei was deceiving them and that there was an unpredictable danger in the pagoda. They waited for another minute. Chu Bei coughed awkwardly. Then, he looked at Han Qi and Han Yu and his daughter and gave them a look. When they met Chu Bei's gaze, Han Qi and Han Yu was stunned. Then, they understood tacitly and soared into the sky. Look, someone is going over. It's the head of the Han family. When they saw Han Qi and his daughter flying toward Chu Bei, the crowd of powerhouses was overjoyed. Boss Chu, are we flying directly into the pagoda? Han Qi asked tentatively. Regarding the unknown Opportunity Pagoda, even though he knew that it belonged to Chu Bei, he was still a little nervous. Those above Do Zone will enter the 8th floor. After Chu Bei glanced at Han Qi, he said to Han Yu, those below Do Zone will enter the 7th floor. Hearing that, Han Qi and Han Yu nodded. After hesitating for a while, the two of them took out 10 million and 5 million respectively and handed them to Chu Bei. Chu Bei glanced at the gold coins in front of him. With a wave of his sleeve, he sent them into the energy ripples on the 8th floor of the Opportunity Pagoda. The system has received 150,000 willpower. The host has received 75,000 willpower. Almost at the same time, the system's voice rang in Chu Bei's mind. Then, Han Qi and his daughter flew toward the 8th and 7th floors of the Opportunity Pagoda, respectively. Just as the two of them passed through a large door, 2 images appeared out of thin air outside the Opportunity Pagoda. The main characters of the 2 images were Han Qi and his daughter. Is that the inside of the pagoda? How could it be such a scene? It's just like a whole new world. Universe in the sleeve. It's really unbelievable. The elites around the call stared blankly at the 2 images in front of the Opportunity Pagoda with their mouths wide open. Even the 4 martial highnesses were astonished. Obviously, they did not expect the inside of the pagoda to be an independent world. Seeing this, the 4 venerable ones looked at Chu Bei again. If this pagoda was really built by him, how terrifying was his strength? According to what they knew, even a doshang would need tens or even hundreds of years to open up a complete space. Not to mention, hiding such a huge, secret realm in a small pagoda was even more difficult. Could it be an illusion? Venerable Feng frowned and guessed. If it's really an illusion, How terrifying would the spiritual strength of the person who built it be? Venerable Acheron took a deep breath and said, in short, whether it was a real world or an illusion, the cultivation of the person who built it was definitely not something they could imagine. Looking at the world in the two images, Chu Bei could not help but criticize in his heart. Although this was his pagoda, he could not enter it. Chapter 117. How could it be like this? Han Yu walked on the black soil and looked around, seriously sizing up this strange little world. Under her feet was a dark and wide road. The road didn't have an end, and she didn't know where it led to. On her right was a winding stream, and in the distance were towering mountains. She couldn't imagine that the 7th floor of the tower would be like this. She originally thought that the 7th floor would be smaller than the area of the valley. Who knew that after flying in, she would find that she had arrived in a brand new world. Shio. Just as Han Yu was seriously sizing up her surroundings, the sound of something breaking through the air rang out. Feeling the wind behind her, Han Yu felt a chill run down her spine. Then, she subconsciously exerted force with her right foot and dodged to the left. A cold light narrowly brushed past Han Yu's right hand. Han Yu steadied herself and looked forward. When she saw the creature that attacked her, a trace of surprise appeared on her face. It was a magic beast with a horn and the shape of a wild boar. Han Yu recognized it at a glance. It was a 3rd-level magic beast, armor-breaking beast. In terms of strength, it was about the level of a human Dodosher. As for why she was surprised, she had seen many 3rd-level armor-breaking beasts, but this was the first time she saw one with a knife in its mouth. The armor-breaking beast moved again, charging toward Han Yu with the knife in its mouth. There are really all kinds of strange things. My horizons have been broadened. This time, Han Yu didn't dodge. Instead, she wrapped her right hand with Do Chi and clawed at the knife in the armor-breaking beast's mouth. Gotcha! Han Yu used a bit of force, and with a crisp sound, the knife in the armor-breaking beast's mouth broke into two. With its weapon destroyed, the armor-breaking beast didn't run away. Instead, it became even more ferocious. After squeaking twice at Han Yu, it opened its mouth and pounced toward her neck. You don't know death. Han Yu snorted coldly and raised her hand to punch out. Bang! With a muffled sound, the armor-piercing beast was sent flying like a cannonball before exploding in the air. After killing the armor-piercing beast, Han Yu saw mounds of dirt appear around her. Then, a low roar came from the mounds of dirt. Han Yu looked around and frowned. Soon, the mounds began to loosen, and an armor-piercing beast emerged from each mound. These armor-piercing beasts were the same as the ones before. They all had a saber in their mouths that flickered with a cold light. Looking at the hundreds and thousands of armor-piercing beasts, Han Yu waved her right hand, and a thin silver sword appeared in her palm. In the next moment, Han Yu's figure flashed. Every time her sword fell, the corpses of several armor-piercing beasts would appear on the ground. Buzz. Just as Han Yu killed a slightly larger armor-piercing beast, a spirit pill filled with rich medicinal energy flew out. As soon as the spirit pill entered her hand, Han Yu felt an irresistible energy enveloping her body. Then, the scene in her vision changed. When the scene stabilized, Han Yu found that she was already outside the giant tower. She's out, she's out. What did she get just now? Could that be the so-called opportunity? Once she gets the opportunity, she will be immediately teleported out? What good things can there be in the body of a 3rd-level armor-piercing beast? Around the call, the experts who had witnessed the entire process stared at Han Yu, especially her tightly clenched hands. Their faces were filled with curiosity and anticipation. Han Yu came back to her senses. Ignoring the gazes around her, she slowly opened her right hand. In her palm, there was a translucent spirit pill the size of a thumb. It emitted a rich medicinal fragrance. Smelling it, one would feel refreshed. Fight Huangdan. Recognizing the spirit pill in her hand at a glance, Han Yu exclaimed. Her face was filled with astonishment. She couldn't be more familiar with Fight Huangdan. Previously, it was all thanks to Fight Huangdan that she was able to fight with Hong Chun. However, because Fight Huangdan was a 7th-level product, on average, She would have to spend close to 30 million to obtain one. She didn't expect that she would obtain a spirit pill from the body of a third-level armor-piercing beast after spending only 5 million. Are you satisfied with the opportunity in the tower? Chu Bei looked at Han Yu with a smile. Han Yu nodded heavily. Then, under countless gazes, she threw Huang Dan into her mouth. Immediately, Han Yu's body lit up with a gorgeous light. Her aura is becoming stronger. As far as I know, Han Yu is now a 7-star Do Huang. Is the spirit pill from the armor-piercing beast useful for such an expert? If that's the case, then this tower really lives up to its name. She broke through from 7 stars to 8 stars. When Han Yu's aura stabilized, Fei Tian, Jianheng, Yu Hong, and the others looked at each other. Their eyes flashed with astonishment. Even the 4 martial highnesses were slightly startled. Everyone, the spirit pill that Miss Han Yu obtained from killing the armor-piercing beast is called Huangdan. As long as you are in the Do Huang realm, regardless of whether you are a 1-star Do Huang or an 8-star Do Huang, you will be able to raise your cultivation by 1 star without any side effects. After Chu Bei finished introducing the effects of the Battle Emperor pill, everyone present immediately became excited. Especially those Do Huang realm experts, their eyes were filled with passion. The effect of this Huangdan is not any weaker than the priceless Huangdan. After personally witnessing Han Yu's cultivation increase, the experts around the call became more and more restless. However, perhaps because they had only seen one example and were still worried, these experts suppressed their palpitations and cast their gazes towards the other image where Han Qi was. After passing through the door of the 8th floor of the tower, Han Qi was stunned by the scene in front of him. His thoughts were the same as Han Yu's, but in reality, this was a strange world. Light and fog were dense, hazy, mysterious, and deep. In the air, rich spirit qi of heaven and earth assaulted his face. The spirit qi here was 10 times, or even 100 times stronger than the outside world. Is this the 8th floor? Han Qi muttered to himself. The surrounding fog was hazy, as if chaos was surging. Everything looked blurry. After walking for a while, the hazy white fog gradually dissipated and his vision gradually improved. Han Qi once again looked at the ruins in front of him. This was like an abandoned world. What entered his eyes was desolation, and it looked extremely bleak and distant. Looking ahead, he saw a large area of ruins. Perhaps it was once a magnificent hall, but now, only broken walls and ruins were left. The ruins were huge and empty, and there were rubble everywhere. Is this caused by the passage of time, or after a terrifying battle? Looking at the once magnificent palaces and halls that had turned into rubble, Han Qi could not help but frown. Crack. Coming to the ruins, there was a crisp sound under his feet. It was a piece of broken armor. He did not know what material it was made of, but there was a faint mist lingering on it. Driven by curiosity, Han Qi picked up the broken armor. However, the moment he picked up the broken armor, the armor released a dazzling light. Then, an irresistible force enveloped his body. Like Han Yu, when Han Qi came back to his senses, he was already outside the Opportunity Tower. Whoosh! Countless gazes gathered on Han Qi. To be more precise, they were focused on the broken armor in Han Qi's hands. Boss Chu, what's with me? Han Qi looked at the tattered armor in his hand, and then looked at Chu Bei. He had a blank look on his face, as if he was a monk scratching his head in confusion. Don't worry. Not only did your 10 million not go to waste, but you also made a huge profit. The corner of Chu Bei's mouth lifted. He extended his finger and pointed at the broken armor in Han Qi's hand. This armor is called the Dragon Elephant Armor. It is nourished with blood, and the wearer can defend against all attacks below a 9-star Do zone. Hearing Chu Bei's words, Han Qi's hands that were holding the broken armor trembled. His face was filled with excitement. He did not doubt the truth of Chu Bei's words at all. He believed him unconditionally. Immediately, he cut his fingertip and a few drops of blood entered the broken armor. With a buzzing sound, the broken armor that absorbed Han Qi's blood seemed to have been reborn. Not only did it repair the broken parts, but it also changed its size. Especially when it was worn on Han Qi's body, It was as if it was tailor-made for him. You just said that it can defend against attacks below 9 stars of dozong? My cultivation is at 8 stars of dozong. Can I give it a try? In the air, Xingyun Ge's deputy pavilion master, Shi Bin, cupped his hands respectfully at Chu Bei. Then, he pointed at the armor on Han Chi's body. Unlike the Wind Thunder Pavilion and Wanjin Pavilion, they had no grudges with Chu Bei. After witnessing the iron lump's strength, they were more inclined to befriend him. You can give it a try. Chu Bei nodded at Shi Bin. Then, he looked at Han Chi and gave him a reassuring look. Meeting Chu Bei's gaze, Han Chi nodded in response. Then, he turned around and faced Shi Bin. Coincidentally, he also wanted to try if this armor could really defend against attacks below 9 stars of dozong, as Chu Bei had said. Under countless expectant gazes, Shi Bin clenched his right hand. The majestic energy in his body quickly gathered in his palm. The terrifying energy fluctuation caused the air to distort. With a soul-stirring sizzling sound, a long spear was formed. Shi Bin threw it. The long spear was so fast that it was in front of Han Chi in the blink of an eye. Han Chi's pupils shrank. Just as he instinctively circulated his Do Chi to dodge, the armor on his body suddenly released a dazzling light. Under this light, the long spear that had gathered Shi Bin's 8-star dozong strength stopped in its tracks. Finally, with a roar, it turned into a rain of light and dissipated. Oh my God! It actually blocked it. This is really a tower with opportunities. Let's not talk about the fact that killing a 3rd-grade armor-piercing beast can drop a pill that can raise a Do Huang's cultivation by 1 star. What's up with Han Chi? He didn't do anything. He just randomly picked up a broken armor from the ruins, and it actually blocked the attack of a 9 stars of dozong. This 10 million is really a huge profit. Seeing Shi Bin's attack being neutralized by the armor, the surrounding experts were stunned. Then, they couldn't help but cry out in surprise. When they looked at Shi Bin, they were even more shocked. Now, he truly believed that this tower contained a supreme opportunity. Boss Chu, I have 5 million here. At this time, one of the Han family elders didn't want to wait any longer. He took out 5 million gold coins, and after obtaining Chu Bei's permission, he directly flew into the 7th floor of the tower. A new image appeared. In the image was a world filled with birds and fragrant flowers. The figure in the image was the Han family elder who had just entered. At this moment, the Han family elder's face was filled with excitement. In front of him, there were spirit plants emitting a rich fragrance. Just from the dense mist flowing on the branches and leaves, one could tell that these spirit plants were not ordinary. This Han family elder seemed to know the rules and didn't immediately pick them. Instead, he looked here and there, as if he was looking for the most valuable spirit plant. Could it be that everyone enters a different world after entering the tower? When they saw that the Han family elder's image was different from the image shown by Han Yu, the 4 venerable ones' faces changed once again. With this thought in mind, the wariness in the gazes of Thunder Zunjia and Sword Zunjia when they looked at Chu Bei again became even more intense. Boss Chu, I'll give you the 5 million. I'm going in too. After the 2nd Han family elder made his decision, the 3rd, 4th, 5th. In the end, all of the Han family elders took out 5 million gold coins and impatiently flew into the 7th floor of the tower. After all of the Han family elders had entered the tower, the Do Wangs and Do Huangs who were watching finally couldn't hold themselves back and began to scramble to pay the entrance fee. The images in front of the Tower of Opportunity also increased. The system has obtained 50,000 willpower. Supporting the host has obtained 25,000 willpower. The system has obtained 50,000 willpower. Supporting the host has obtained 25,000 willpower. The system has obtained 50,000 willpower. Supporting the host has obtained 25,000 willpower. The system has obtained 50,000 willpower. Supporting the host has obtained 25,000 willpower. As Chu Bei listened to the system's continuous beeps, as well as the ever-increasing willpower value, the smile on his face grew wider and wider. Boss Chu, I'll take a trip to the 8th floor. Hearing the way the Han family addressed Chu Bei, Xingyun Ji's vice pavilion master Shi Bin also changed the way he addressed him. After paying the 10 million entry fee, he flew into the 8th floor. Sherbin had just passed through the door and didn't even have time to observe his surroundings when he felt a black shadow pounce at him from the right. The black shadow's aura was roughly equivalent to a 3-star Do Huang. Sherbin didn't hesitate at all and waved his hand with all his strength. With a bang, the black shadow exploded and a pill fell into his palm. Then, Sherbin felt an irresistible force envelop him. In the next moment, Sherbin was transported out. Looking at the familiar surroundings, Sherbin carefully held the pill in his hand with a dazed expression. From the time he paid to entering the tower to killing the black shadow and obtaining the pill, it took less than a second. Boss Chu, is this the fastest opportunity for me? After a long while, Sherbin finally came back to his senses. Holding the pill in his hand, he looked at Chu Bei with a questioning gaze. Chu Bei also looked at Sherbin. He was also shocked. The other party's speed was so fast that it was unbelievable. The scene in front of the giant tower only flashed by for a moment. Chu Bei coughed softly. I see that your bones are amazing. You are indeed the chosen one. The pill you obtained is called the Battle Master Pill. As for its effect, it is similar to the Huangdan, but the target is changed to a Battle Master. You mean, it can help me break through to 9 stars? Sherbin directly ignored the first half of Chu Bei's teasing and excitedly put the Battle Master Pill to the tip of his nose and sniffed it. Then, after a slight hesitation, he slowly put the pill into his mouth. At this moment, the 4 venerables, Fei Tian, Jianheng, Yu Hong, and the other strong people in the square pavilion all focused their gazes on Sherbin. After waiting for a moment, they felt Sherbin's aura begin to rise. He really broke through. When Sherbin's aura stabilized, Fei Tian, Jianheng, and the others looked at each other in disbelief. P.S. If any of you have the monthly votes, I hope you can support me and vote for me. Thank you very much. Chapter 118. The person who was the most excited was none other than Sherbin himself. He had been stuck at an 8-star Do zone for many years without any signs of breaking through. Who knew that he would successfully break through after spending only 10 million? Feeling the increase in strength in his body, Sherbin once again looked at Chu Bei with eyes full of gratitude. Boss Chu, I want 10 million too. Yu Hong's figure flashed and appeared in front of Chu Bei. He bowed, took out 10 million, and flew to the 8th floor. Seeing Yu Hong disappear through the door, Fei Tian and Jianheng looked at each other with envy. As a businessman, in front of money, past grudges can be put aside. At this moment, Chu Bei's voice sounded in Fei Tian and Jianheng's ears. Hearing this, Fei Tian and Jianheng looked at Chu Bei. After hesitating for a while, they took out 10 million and entered the 8th floor of the tower. 9 stars Do Zone. This was a huge temptation for them. Boss Chu, can we go in and take a look? Finally, Venerable Wind couldn't hold back his curiosity. He wanted to enter the tower and personally experience its mysteries. You can enter if you pay. Chu Bei was very easygoing. Venerable Wind didn't say much. After handing over 10 million, he instantly appeared in front of a door on the 8th floor of the Opportunity Tower and walked in. After Venerable Wind, the Venerable Acheron, Lay the Venerable, and Sword Venerable all entered the tower. As more and more powerful people entered the 8th floor of the square pavilion, the other Dozongs who were originally hesitating also made their decision. One figure after another flew into the 8th floor. The number of people on the 7th floor has reached 100. Entry stopped. When the system's voice sounded, the 8 doors on the 7th floor of the Opportunity Tower closed at the same time. Boss Chu, this is? The remaining powerhouses who had yet to enter the tower pointed at the tightly shut door as a bad premonition arose in their hearts. Everyone, the number of people who have entered the 7th floor has reached my target. I'll close it now. Chu Bei glanced at the people who had yet to enter the tower and responded indifferently. After confirming their guesses, regret appeared on everyone's faces. Seeing that the 7th level had already closed, the experts above the Do Zone class began to scramble with one another, afraid that they would miss this opportunity. The number of people on the 8th floor has reached 50. Entry stopped. After a while, the system's voice sounded again. Those elite Dozongs who had yet to enter the 7th level were just like those who had yet to enter. Their faces were filled with regret. As time passed, those people who entered the tower were sent out one after another. Their faces were all filled with excitement. Of course, there were also a few people whose expressions were extremely ugly. As soon as they entered the pagoda, they entered a barren land or a boundless desert. Before they even flew to the place with the treasures, the time was up. Rumble. When everyone was teleported out of the pagoda of fortuitous encounters disappeared with a rumble. Xiao He, who was beside Chu Bei, also disappeared. Boss Chu, when do you plan to open the pagoda of fortuitous encounters again? At this moment, a Do Zong who had yet to enter the pagoda could not help but ask. For now, Chu Bei replied indifferently. Although the opportunity that the four great Do Zuns had obtained was not of much use to them, they had personally experienced the mysteries of the world within the pagoda. It was not an illusion but a real world. Because of this, when they flew out of the pagoda and looked at Chu Bei, the strange look in their eyes was indescribable. Everyone, we'll meet again if fate allows. After saying this with a smile, Chu Bei landed beside the little doctor and Qing Lin and left with the two girls. After sending the two girls back to the Han house, Chu Bei went to a secluded area outside the city and impatiently opened the system interface. Through this pagoda of fortuitous encounters, the 100 people on the 7th floor received 5 million willpower. The 50 people on the 8th floor also received 5 million willpower. A total of 5 million willpower. Including the remaining amount from before, Chu Bei currently had a total of 3 million willpower. In the Do Zong realm, one needed 1 million willpower to exchange for 1 star of cultivation. Currently, Chu Bei's cultivation was at 7 stars of Do Zong. In the Do Zun realm, one needed 2 million willpower to break through 1 star. Host successfully exchanged cultivation. Without hesitation, Chu Bei used 4 million willpower to exchange for cultivation. The first 2 million willpower was used to break through to 9 stars of Do Zong, while the last 2 million willpower was used to break through to the Do Zun realm. The system's voice sounded, and that familiar warm current arrived on time. It began to rush through his limbs and bones and every cell in his body. Outside the Heaven Eye Mountain, the mysteries of the heavens, Meet Pagoda disappeared and several figures flashed out. However, just as these people were about to turn back, each of them looked toward the southeast with uncertainty. Faintly, they seemed to sense a dangerous and terrifying aura. This aura was like a sleeping dragon that was slowly awakening. What's going on? Was it an illusion? The group of powerhouses stopped in their tracks and looked toward the southeast. They looked at each other. Boom. Just as the group of powerhouses was guessing, a vast and majestic energy fluctuation suddenly spread out from the southeast like a surging tide. Ripples appeared in the void. Immediately after, in their line of sight, 3 huge fire dragons intertwined in the air and turned into a 3-colored flame that covered half the sky. Even though they were far away, the moment the 3-colored flame appeared, the temperature of the air around the group of powerhouses rose abruptly. What a terrifying flame! What's going on over there? Let's go and take a look. However, just as the group of powerhouses was about to go and investigate, an even more terrifying energy swept over. This energy directly tore the void apart and made a sizzling sound. The group of powerhouses looked at each other and gave up on the idea of going to investigate without hesitation. This aura, someone is advancing to a Do Zun. Lei the Venerable narrowed his eyes when he felt the increasingly powerful energy fluctuation from the southeast. When you advanced to a Do Zun, did you have this kind of power? Venerable Wind glanced at Lei the Venerable indifferently. Lei the Venerable frowned. But based on the Do Chi fluctuation alone, it's indeed the peak of a Do Zong advancing to a Do Zun. There's no need to be suspicious. We'll know once we go and take a look. Acheron said indifferently. However, the moment the 4 venerable lords disappeared, the terrifying energy fluctuation from the southeast also disappeared. Outside the city, in the southeast corner, the 4 venerable lords appeared and looked at the empty mountain forest with their brows tightly knitted together. We're a step too late. Venerable Wind sighed. At the same time, Chu Bei, who had already appeared in the sky above the Han house, had a smile on his face. Is this the Do Zun realm? It's really comfortable. Feeling the vast ocean-like Do Chi in his body, Chu Bei couldn't help but feel a little fascinated. Do Zun and Do Zong. Although there was only a difference of one level, the difference in strength was like heaven and earth. This step was perhaps the punishment of the heavens that countless Do Zongs couldn't cross in their entire lives. Chu Bei looked in front of him. He stretched out his palm and suddenly clenched it. Immediately, the space in front of him distorted into a strange, sunken space. Spatial gullies were formed in the surroundings. If this clench was used against a magical beast, even a grade 7 magical beast with strong defense would be crushed into a pile of flesh and blood. Feeling the vast energy that could distort space with just a raise of his hand, Chu Bei's smile became even wider. Whether one could control space was the most obvious difference between a Do Zun and a Do Zong. System with a conscience. Chu Bei returned to the Han house and once again evaluated the system. Although he wasn't able to become a Do Di in 7 days due to various restrictions, since the system was activated, he had stepped into the Do Zun realm in a month. Reaching this realm, even in the entire Do Chi continent, he could be considered a strong person. After all, even the pavilion master of the square pavilion was only at this realm. After becoming a Do Zun, Chu Bei found that he was more adept at using the 3 heavenly flames. His control of the fusion between them had also become more perfect. 15 minutes later, Chu Bei brought Qing Lin and Little Doctor to the main hall of the Han house to bid farewell to Han Chi and the others. "Boss Chu, are you leaving so soon?" Han Yu's face was filled with reluctance. All good things must come to an end. Moreover, we are just passing by. If fate wills it, we will meet again. Chu Bei's words carried a smile. In reality, the other reason he was leaving was that the Han family had already used up 90% of their wealth. There was no point in staying any longer. "Boss Chu, take care. If you have time, you are welcome to visit the Han family at any time." Looking at the spaceship that suddenly descended outside the main hall, the Han family members' eyes flashed with astonishment. Before this, they had already heard about it from Han Shui. However, seeing it with their own eyes still caused a huge wave in their hearts. Looking at the disappearing spaceship, Han Chi's expression was somewhat absent-minded. Although the other party had only stayed in the Han house for a few short days, in these few days, the overall strength of the Han house had increased by several levels because of the other party. Now, they no longer put their former opponent, the Hong family, in their eyes. As for Fenglai Beige, even if the other party did not care about their reputation and attacked a faction in the city, they still had to be wary of the Boss Chu behind them. Moreover, he himself had obtained a dragon elephant armor that could defend against a 9 stars Do Zong attack. "Boss Chu, can you hear me? I am Xiao Yin. Can you hear me?" On the spaceship, Chu Bei was enjoying Qing Lin's massage when Xiao Yan's anxious voice suddenly sounded in his mind. Ever since Xiao Yin became the proxy, he could communicate with the other party through the proxy ring. The other party could also contact him through the proxy ring. However, in these few days, the other party had not used the proxy ring to contact him. This was the first time. Chu Bei looked at the proxy page on the system interface. Then, with a thought, he clicked on the teleport button behind the proxy named Xiao Yin. The moment he pressed the teleport button, a ripple appeared in the spaceship, followed by a buzzing sound. A figure appeared out of thin air. Looking at the huge change in his surroundings, Xiao Yin had a dumbfounded expression. Only when he saw the familiar faces of Chu Bei, Qing Lin, and Little Doctor did he react and exclaim, "Boss Chu, in just a few days, I didn't expect you to break through to the Dohuang realm." Chu Bei looked at Xiao Yin with a smile. "Boss Chu, where am I?" Xiao Yin looked around and could not help but ask. "Above the central region." Chu Bei calmly replied, "What? This is the central region?" Hearing Chu Bei's words, Xiao Yan's mouth opened wide, his face full of shock. Chapter 119. Xiao Yan's face was filled with disbelief. Although he had never been to the central region, he knew the distance between the central region and Canaan College. Even if a Do Zong flew at full speed, it would still take a few days. And he was still in the inner court of Canaan a second ago, and in the next second, he was in the sky above the central region. As expected of Boss Chu, you're really resourceful. Xiao Yin calmed his mind and couldn't help but sigh. Speak. Why did you call me? Chu Bei went straight to the point. Xiao Yin was stunned at first, but quickly thought of something. His face was filled with anxiety as he hurriedly said, Yao Lao was captured by the Soul Hall. Chu Bei frowned. Then why are you looking for me? I'm just a merchant. Xiao Yin seemed to understand Chu Bei's meaning. He took out a transparent jade box about 1 meter long and 1 meter tall from his storage ring. Inside the box, there was a ball of white flame dancing. When this ball of flame was taken out by Xiao Yin, even though it was wrapped in a jade box, the temperature in the flying ship still dropped a lot. Bone-chilling flame? Chu Bei looked at Xiao Yin with some surprise. Bone-chilling flame, ranked 11th on the heavenly flame ranking. It is a unique flame that combines extreme cold and extreme heat. It can only be found in places of extreme cold and extreme in every 100 years when the sun and moon alternate. This was originally Yao Lao's heavenly flame, but when he was captured by the Soul Hall, he gave it to me. At this point, Xiao Yan's expression became extremely serious. Boss Chu, you're a merchant. I'm now using it to make a deal with you on behalf of Yao Lao. I want you to save Yao Lao and reconstruct his physical body. Host, please complete the bone-chilling flame trade as soon as possible. After the trade is completed, Level 9 commodity rights will be granted to the host, and the host will be rewarded with 1 million willpower. Just as Chu Bei was hesitating whether to be a good person for free, the system's voice sounded. All right, I'll accept this trade. Chu Bei really couldn't refuse the reward after completing the mission, especially the Level 9 commodity authority. Therefore, Chu Bei could only suppress his kindness for the time being. Once the Level 9 merchandise authority was unlocked, he would have the confidence to roam the Do-Chi continent. In the short conversation that followed, Chu Bei also found out the reason why Yao Lao was captured. Speaking of which, this had something to do with him. When Han Feng brought people into the inner court of Canaan, Chu Bei killed a 9-stars Dozong from Soul Palace. Before this Dozong died, he had used the Soul Tablet to inform the branch hall leader that he belonged to. After this branch hall chief had determined the general location of the 9-stars Dozong's death, he had sent people to patrol and monitor in an attempt to find the entrance to the inner academy. However, it was to no avail. Until today, when Vice Dean Hu Gan was leading a group of new students to train in the back mountain, they were discovered by the people of Soul Palace. The branch hall leader had also rushed over immediately. Although his interrogation was to no avail, he had discovered Yao Lao's existence. The branch hall leader was so strong that Hu Gan and Su Qian, who had arrived later, were heavily injured. As for Yao Lao, he was taken away by the branch hall leader. Boss Chu, do you have any plans? Xiao Yin probed. Chu Bei smiled knowingly. After glancing at Xiao Yin, he moved his mind and pressed the transfer button on the agent interface. In an instant, the entire meteor metal ship turned into a ray of light and disappeared. I'm back. Looking at the familiar forest around him, Xiao Yin was shocked. Boss Chu. At this moment, Su Qian, Hu Gan, and the others saw Chu Bei and immediately flew over. Their voices were filled with shock. They didn't expect that Xiao Yin would bring Boss Chu back after disappearing for a few minutes. Let's go and save Yao Chun. Chu Bei nodded at Su Qian and the others and said, Boss Chu, do you know the location of the Soul Palace branch hall that captured Elder Yao? Su Qian was confused and asked. The Soul Palace had many branch halls. Any one of them was extremely hidden and hard to find. Chu Bei smiled. When the system accepted the bone-chilling fire, a small map appeared in his sea of consciousness. There was a red dot on the map that represented Yao Lao's location. The bone-burying mountain range was located in the northwest of the Black Corner region. Due to the terrain, the Yin aura here was extremely heavy. Moreover, the Yin aura was mixed with a thick corpse aura. As this mountain range was close to the chaotic Black Corner region, it had the name Bone-Burying Mountain Range. The corpses of those who were killed in the Black Corner region would mostly be transported here and then casually discarded. Regardless of day or night, it was almost impossible to find a shadow in this mountain range. A cool breeze filled with chilliness brushed past the piles of bones. A ripple appeared in the air above a pile of bones. Several figures walked out from the ripple. I didn't expect the branch hall to be hidden in such a gloomy place. Xiao Yin glanced at the hundreds and thousands of corpses below and couldn't help but crease his brows. Isn't this the most suitable place for them? The corners of Chu Bei's mouth held a smile. His gaze was fixed in between the two tall gray trees in front of him. Upon closer inspection, one could discover that there was a spatial barrier between the two tall trees. Arriving in front of the spatial barrier, Chu Bei casually waved his sleeve. The spatial barrier instantly shattered and waves of suction came from within. Then, he waved his right hand, and a huge net made of purple flames appeared in the air above the bone-burying mountain range. There's actually such a barrier. What a big deal. Su Qian was speechless. The barrier of this Soul Palace branch hall was even better than the one in their inner courtyard. Entering the spatial barrier, Xiao Yin, Hu Gan and the others' expressions changed. In their line of sight, there was an extremely high and steep slope. At the end of the slope was a huge valley surrounded by mountains. Inside the valley was a huge black hall that was at least 100 zhang tall. The huge hall was like a creeping wild beast that was hiding in the darkness. It was filled with a terrifying aura that chilled one's heart. Yao Chun is in that direction. After entering this space, Chu Bei quickly determined Yao Chen's location according to the map given by the system. Deep in the direction that Chu Bei pointed at, there was a huge plaza. On the plaza, there were black stone pillars that were 100 zhang tall. Each of the stone pillars was covered with countless strange runes. Numerous pitch-black chains extended from the stone pillars, intersecting and outlining the air of the square. At the end of these chains, there were balls of faint light floating. Inside these balls of light were illusory souls with painful expressions. In the center of the plaza, there was a platform that was about 100 zhang tall. There was a huge stone pillar on each side of the platform. 1-meter-long black chains snaked downwards like pythons. At the end of the chains, there was a ball of light with the most intense glow. Within the ball of light, an elderly soul was seated with his eyes closed. It was Yao Chun, who had been captured. At this moment, the 4 strange black chains were entwined around his limbs like vines, causing him to be unable to move. Suddenly, Yao Chen's tightly shut eyes suddenly opened in the deathly still atmosphere. This was because he had sensed a few familiar auras. How did they find this place? Yao Chen determined the owners of these few auras. His puzzled old face became grave as he muttered to himself, "You should not have come." This branch hall chief was a 4-star Dozun. Su Qian, Hu Gan, Xiao Yin and the others had taken the risk to come here. This was no different from sending themselves to their deaths. Yao Chen tried to use his spiritual sense to transmit a message and ask Xiao Yin and the others to quickly leave. However, the chains on his body not only bound his soul but also suppressed his spiritual sense. Not good. The boundary wall has been broken. Quickly inform the hall chief. The remaining people will follow me to guard these spiritual bodies. A moment later, a black figure above the square sensed an abnormality and let out a sharp cry in a panic. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The cry had just been emitted from his mouth when black figures rushed toward the square in 2s and 3s from every corner of this space. Yao Lao, we have come to save you. A familiar voice sounded beside his ear. Yao Chen shook his head. Xiao Yin, Elder Su, with your strength, you really should not, Yao Chen sighed. However, he swallowed the remaining words in his mouth when he saw the few figures that had appeared in his sight. This was especially the case when he saw the person in the middle. Boss Chu, why have you also come? Yao Chen exclaimed. The worry on his face instantly disappeared. Replacing it was a face that was filled with joy. His originally translucent body even vaguely showed signs of disappearing due to his excitement. Xiao Yin, you used your bone-chilling flame to make a deal with me on your behalf. I have accepted this deal. Therefore, I have come, Chu Bei said indifferently. Hearing this, Yao Chen looked at Xiao Yin. He wanted to say something but hesitated. The invaders are here. Let's take them down together. On the square, following a shout, several figures surrounded Chu Bei and his group in an instant. Then, each of them held a weapon and charged toward Chu Bei and his group at the same time. Looking at the attacking figures, Chu Bei smiled indifferently. As he raised his hand, a three-colored flame spread across the sky. Amidst the terrifyingly high temperature, these black figures did not even get within 10 meters of Chu Bei and his group before they were all burned by the flame. Not even their bones were left. After casually dealing with a group of ants, Chu Bei extended his hand and pointed at the pitch-black chain that bound Yao Chen. With a sizzling sound, the pitch-black chain was burned into nothingness under the three-colored flame. "Thank you, Boss Chu, for saving me." Although he knew that the other party had saved him as a deal, Yao Chen, who had regained his freedom, still cupped his hands toward Chu Bei with a face full of gratitude. "Who are you? How dare you come here without permission? How did you find out about the entrance of this hall?" At this moment, an icy cold voice was emitted from deep within the hall. Immediately, a dense black fog surged out from within. Within the black fog, an old figure that was as thin as a skeleton slowly hovered above the square while emitting a sinister aura. Within the black fog, one could vaguely see that old face appeared extremely shriveled. Both of his eyes were sunken and two clusters of ghost flames danced in his eye sockets, emitting traces of strangeness. "Boss Chu. He is the one who captured Yao Lao, the hall chief of this branch hall." Xiao Yan pointed at the skinny old man and said, "He is also a 4-star dozun." Yao Chen added. At the same time, he paid attention to Chu Bei's expression. It was as though he was testing the other party's expression when he heard that he was a 4-star dozun. However, to Yao Chen's disappointment, the other party's face did not reveal any joy or worry from the beginning until the end. "Yao Chen, don't tell me that this person has received a favor from you?" The skinny old man coldly stared at Chu Bei. His hoarse voice caused one's hair to stand. Earlier, he had personally witnessed the scene of the person in front of him killing all his subordinates. He had sensed the extraordinariness of the three-colored flame that was intertwined with each other. Chapter 120. You don't need to know my background. You only need to know that I am the one who killed Protector Yu of your branch hall. Other than that, there is also the sect leader of the Soul Sect and Wu Qian. That's right, there is also that Protector Wu who colluded with the Yunlan sect. Chu Bei placed his hands behind his back and calmly looked at the skinny old man. The corner of his mouth was lifted into a smile. "So it is you." Hearing Chu Bei's words, the skinny old man's face immediately became gloomy. A dense, cold voice that was filled with killing intent sounded. A monstrous black aura surged out from his body. At the same time, the many dark black chains around the square also began to tremble intensely at this moment. Finally, they all merged into the skinny old man's body. "Those who oppose my Hall of Souls, regardless of what faction is behind you, must die. After killing you and extracting your soul, it will definitely be an outstanding spiritual body." A frightening laughter was emitted from the skinny old man's mouth. An ominous glint flashed in his eyes and the black fog behind him became increasingly pervasive. Feeling the increasingly frightening pressure being emitted from the skinny old man's body, Su Qian, who gone and the others became incomparably solemn. An elite dozun was something that they were far from being able to compare with. However, seeing Chu Bei's calm manner, the solemn expression on their faces became a little warmer. 7-chain demon ceiling. When the skinny old man's aura rose to its limit, his mouth once again emitted a stern cry. As the cry sounded, the black aura behind him surged. It was as though a demon god had descended to the world and roared at the sky. One could hear a dang-dang sound. 7 dark black chains within the black fog were accompanied by sharp screeching sounds as they rushed toward Chu Bei from different directions. That momentum was unusually frightening. Wherever the dark black chains passed, the empty space would shatter inch by inch. Spatial strength would spread. Su Qian, who gone, Xiao Yan and the others immediately retreated and distanced themselves from the battlefield. As for Chu Bei, he did not dodge. With a faint smile, he flipped his palm and an axe with a flickering silver glow appeared. The axe appeared ordinary. However, if one were to look carefully, regardless of whether it was the handle or the blade, there was a layer of hazy fog that lingered for a long time. Rumble. Just as Chu Bei's right hand gripped the handle of the axe, The space around him trembled and distorted violently. Then, the barrier around this side hall began to shake violently. The boundless energy between heaven and earth surged like a raging river, crazily pouring into the axe blade. Kacha! Kacha! The 7 chains wielded by the skinny old man, which carried a terrifying aura, were shattered by the violent energy around the axe blade before they could reach within 1 meter of Chu Bei. Finally, they turned into a rain of light and disappeared in the distorted void. How is this possible? The skinny old man's pupils suddenly shrank, and a trace of astonishment flashed through his eyes. Without waiting for the skinny old man to launch another attack, Chu Bei held the axe with both hands and chopped down fiercely. Immediately, the energy in the surroundings formed a blade light at the tip of the axe under the guidance of the axe blade. It extended far away, 300 meters, 3,000 meters, until it pierced through the Soul Palace's barrier. Looking at the huge blade light above his head, fear appeared on the skinny old man's face. This destructive power was far above his. Without any hesitation, a ripple appeared under the skinny old man's feet. However, just as he was about to break through the void and escape, the huge blade light above his head chopped down. Under this power, the skinny old man suddenly realized that the void was imprisoned, and he had nowhere to run. 100 Chain Shield. Feeling the blade light getting closer and closer, the skinny old man did not dare to hesitate. He immediately switched from offense to defense, and adopted his strongest defense. As his voice trailed off, hundreds of pitch-black chains appeared from the black gas behind the skinny old man. Every chain was engraved with strange runes. Nearly 100 pitch-black chains intertwined, instantly forming a huge shield tablet. However, the skinny old man's strongest defense was no different from a decoration in front of the blade light. Kacha! The blade light was like lightning, easily splitting the shield tablet. Then, under the skinny old man's fearful gaze, it first landed between his eyebrows. In front of Su Qian, Xiao Yin, and Yao Chen's shocked gazes, the blade light instantly split the skinny old man into 2. During the process, the skinny old man's soul tried to escape. However, before it could leave his body, the destructive energy on the blade light annihilated it into nothingness. Bang! After killing the skinny old man, the blade light continued to fall, landing on the square and the huge hall in the distance. Amidst the loud sound, the square and the huge hall were split into 2, leaving behind a 10,000 feet wide and bottomless gully. Next, the boundary shattered, revealing the burying Bone Mountain Range. Gulp! Su Qian, Yao Chun, Xiao Yin, Hu Gan, and the others who had witnessed this scene finally recovered. They were startled as they looked at Chu Bei's back. Their expressions solidified, and they subconsciously inhaled a deep breath of cool air. With the might of the axe, they had completely witnessed the terrifying strength of this mysterious boss Chu. His weak spirit had just entered this physical body when it was affected by the majestic blood qi. Within a short moment, his spiritual strength had a shocking increase. As for his cultivation, it had also recovered to the level of a 7-star dozong. He was confident that once he completely familiarized himself with this physical body, he would be able to recover his peak strength in less than half a year. He might even be able to advance to the next level. This physical body is called the King of God's body. It is the physique of a god. It can be considered a great opportunity for you. Chu Bei patted Yao Chen gently and said earnestly, "As for how far you can go, it will depend on you." After saying this, Chu Bei transmitted the information about the King of God's body to Yao Chen. This so-called King of God's body came from the shrouding sky dimension. The more he understood about this body, the more excited Yao Chen became. The host's bone-chilling fire transaction is complete. Level 9 Commodity Authority unlocked. Reward, 1 million willpower. The moment the system's voice sounded, Chu Bei suddenly realized that the bone-chilling fire could also be used by him. At the same time, on the commodity exchange page in the system interface, the level 9 commodities that were originally gray all became multicolored and could be exchanged. Not long after Chu Bei and the others left, a large number of experts in the Black Corner region who heard the commotion rushed over. When they saw the almost ruined Seoul Hall branch in the mountain range, they were all shocked and looked at each other. Inner Court of Canaan. Boss Chu, are you going to Zhongzhou again? Su Qian looked at Chu Bei. Little Ziyin was standing beside him. You want me to bring her along? Chu Bei saw through Su Qian's thoughts at a glance. Su Qian nodded. Maybe we can find her clansmen in Zhongzhou. Chu Bei looked at Ziyin. What do you think? I want to follow you. Little Ziyin stuck out her tongue. I don't accept credit here, so there's no point in following me if you don't have money. Chu Bei patted little Ziyin's head. I will think of a way to steal, earn money. Little Ziyin immediately responded. Her talent was the power of space. Since that's the case, let's go. Chu Bei took the lead and stepped onto the meteorite iron ship. Little Doctor and Qing Lin followed closely behind. After little Ziyin waved goodbye to Su Qian, who gone, and the others, she also jumped onto the ship. She looked around excitedly like Granny Lu who had entered a big manor. The host has reached the requirement to obtain willpower. Upgrading the All Heavens shop. Choosing a new location for the All Heavens shop. Choosing a new location for the All Heavens shop has been successful. The host will go and check it out immediately. During the flight of the ship, Chu Bei was enjoying the delicious food cooked by Little Doctor when the system sounded. Just as the three girls were enjoying their stroll, the pedestrians on the street suddenly surged and rushed in one direction. Where are you going in such a hurry? Don't ask. Let's follow them first. If we're late, there won't be any good seats. What happened? Hurry up and tell us. I heard that a divine object suddenly appeared in the city square. I think it's a small mansion. What? There's such a thing? In the hustle and bustle, more and more people on the street ran in the direction of the central square. A mansion that descended from the sky? Hearing the conversation of the people on the street, Little Doctor's face flashed with surprise. She then looked at Chu Bei and said, Boss, let's go and join in the fun. We have to go. Chu Bei shook his head and sighed. He seemed to have guessed what was going on with the mansion that descended from the sky. In the center of Tianhuang City, there was an extremely spacious bluestone square. At this moment, the square was occupied by a sea of people. The noise was like a demon's voice, causing eardrums to buzz. Countless curious eyes were looking at the center of the square. There was a stone platform in the center of the square. On the stone platform, a huge black wormhole was slowly rotating. Shocking spatial fluctuations spread out from it. However, the focus of the crowd was not the wormhole that had existed for a long time. It was a small mansion about 100 meters away from the wormhole. Chapter 121. Looking over, there was something strange about this mansion. There was actually a circular membrane of light that completely enveloped it. In front of the entrance of the mansion, there were two groups of people facing each other. Isn't your Chang clan's reach a little too far? This central square is under the jurisdiction of our Lu clan. The leader of the group on the left was a well-built man. His face was firm, and there was a faint feeling of prestige without being angry. I'm afraid that your Lu clan is too overbearing. The first to discover this mansion that fell from the sky is our Chung clan. The leader of the group on the right was also a middle-aged man. Although his body was skinny, the aura that he emitted was not weaker than the leader of the Lu clan. If this mansion was originally on this square, our Lu clan would naturally not care. However, it is an external object. Moreover, our Chung clan was the first to discover it. Naturally, it belongs to our Chung clan. The leader of the Chung clan spoke once again. His tone was forceful. If you don't leave, don't blame us for attacking. The leader of the Lu clan completely ignored the words of the leader of the Chen clan. After his cold snort sounded, the aura of an 8-star Do Wang erupted. Do you think that we are afraid of you? The leader of the Chung clan coldly stared at the leader of the Lu clan. His face did not have the slightest fear. In an instant, the atmosphere between the two groups became tense. The people around the square who were watching the show also took a couple of steps back. It was as though they were afraid of being implicated. If you are fighting over this mansion, I think that there is no need for it. Just as the two groups were about to fight, a voice that carried a smile sounded from the square. Quickly following this, a man and 3 women slowly walked into the square and toward the entrance of the mansion. "Who are you?" The gazes of the Chung clan and Liu clan immediately focused on Chu Bei. Their words carried a questioning tone. "The owner of this mansion," Chu Bei faintly replied. "What?" "He said that he is the owner of this mansion." "Is this true?" Hearing Chu Bei's words, the surrounding crowd all had suspicious expressions on their faces. "What evidence do you have to prove that it's your mansion?" The Liu family's leader questioned again. "Can you enter this mansion?" Chu Bei pointed to the mansion that was wrapped in the light film and asked in return, "Can you?" Before the leader of the Liu family could speak, the leader of the Cheng family let out a cold snort. Both he and the leader of the Liu family had tried to enter the mansion. However, even with their 8-star Do Wongs, their all-out attacks were unable to break the light film. Chu Bei didn't respond to the Cheng family's leader. Instead, under countless gazes, he led the 3 women towards the gate at a moderate pace. When Chu Bei touched the light membrane outside the mansion, the light membrane directly turned into a rain of light and dissipated. Then, with a creak, the door of the mansion opened automatically. Damn, could this mansion really be his? I'm 80% sure. Otherwise, how could the membrane be broken? Who is he? I've never seen him before. I don't think he's from Tianhuang City. When they saw the light membrane break by itself because of Chu Bei and the door open, the crowd of onlookers immediately started discussing with astonishment. "May I know who you are?" "Mansions are not allowed to be built in the central plaza. Since you're the owner of the mansion, please move it away." The leader of the Liu family looked at Chu Bei and said, "Since we've already chosen a location, I'm afraid we can't move it away. Let's do it here." Chu Bei looked at the wormhole 100 meters away. This was the place with the most traffic in Tianhuang City. It was indeed suitable for a shop to set up. Just as Chu Bei finished speaking, words appeared on the originally empty plaque above the mansion's gate. "Celestial shop, look. This is not only a mansion, but also a shop. In other words, that guy is a merchant. I just don't know what he's selling inside. We'll know when we go in later." However, just as the crowd of onlookers was eager to enter the mansion to take a look, words appeared on both sides of the gate. "Below Dozong, no entry, damn. How can they do business like this? Are they discriminating against us who have low cultivation?" Seeing the 2 new words, the crowd of onlookers instantly exploded. Their faces were filled with anger as they stared at Chu Bei. The people from the Liu family and the Cheng family also frowned. They were extremely displeased. "Are you really not going to move it away?" The leader of the Liu family stared intently at Chu Bei. The pressure of a Do Wong surged toward Chu Bei. "Disperse. Don't block my shop." Chu Bei did not care about the pressure from the leader of the Liu family. His light voice sounded as he casually waved his hand. Immediately, a wild wind wreaked havoc. Under this wind, even the Do Wongs from the 2 families did not have any ability to resist. They were forcefully sent 200 meters away from the mansion. How is this possible? When their bodies stabilized, the leaders of the Liu family and the Cheng family looked at each other. Their eyes were filled with a thick shock. When the 2 of them looked at Chu Bei again, their eyes were filled with fear. As for Chu Bei, he ignored the 2 families and the crowd of onlookers. He led the 3 girls to familiarize themselves with the upgraded shop. Entering the mansion, they looked around. Although it was not big, the interior was filled with lush trees and colorful flowers. There were fake mountains, small ponds, green lotus roots, and pink water lotuses. All of these complemented each other, making it appear peaceful and beautiful. On the intersecting green stone paths, birds could be seen flying happily. On both sides of the main path, there were 2 exquisite small houses. Walking into the house, the layout of the 4 houses was basically the same. The first thing that entered their eyes was a purple curtain. Under the curtain was a soft wooden bed. The exquisite carvings were extraordinary. At the end of the bed were tassels that swayed gently. Looking to the side, a guqin was placed in the corner. A bronze mirror was placed on a wooden dressing table. The entire room was fresh and comfortable. Obviously, these 4 rooms were for women. "Boss, are we going to live here in the future?" Looking at the layout of the room, the little doctor and Qing Lin's eyes lit up. Chu Bei glanced at the two girls, nodded slightly, and responded softly. They continued to walk along the main path. At the end of the path, there was a 3-story hall. On both sides of the hall, there was a black iron lion that was several people tall. Its mane was curly, and its hair was like steel needles. Looking at its eyes, it walked forward with its head held high. Under its sharp claws, it stepped on a swallow and held a stone pearl in its mouth. Just looking at it, it was sharp, domineering, and majestic. On the plaque of the hall, there were the words, "All Heaven's Shop." Walking into the hall, there were 10 rows of shelves. Each shelf was marked with an eye-catching number from 1 to 10. At this moment, shelves 6, 7, and 8 were filled with dazzling products. There were only a few products on the 9th shelf. As for shelves 1 to 5 and 10, there was nothing. Under each product, there was a card with the price of the product written on the card. At the back of the shelf, there was a massage chair made of an unknown material. The massage chair was printed with the word 9. This is what a shop should look like. Looking at the dazzling products on the shelves numbered 6, 7, and 8, Chu Bei couldn't help but let out a sigh. Before this, the shop was empty. Chu Bei could only rely on spinning plates to obtain willpower. Although the upgraded shop didn't have a complete set of products, at least some of them could be sold with a clear price. As for the corresponding number on the shelves, it actually referred to the grade of the product, including the massage chair. Boss, can these products really be sold? Looking at the price of the products on the shelves, Qing Lin and Little Doctor's mouths were wide open. Especially the few products on the 9th shelf, the series of zeros on the price tag was dazzling. Those who need it will naturally buy it. Chu Bei's lips curled into a smile. Perhaps because the prices were clearly marked and customers could choose according to their needs, the prices of the products on these shelves were much higher than the average price that could be drawn from the lottery. For example, the products on the 6th shelf, if one were to spin the lucky wheel, it would cost 800,000 gold coins per spin. On average, one could spin a 6th grade product 30 times, which was 24 million gold coins. However, the prices of the products on the 6th shelf were all above 30 million gold coins. Even if they were of the same grade, the prices were very different due to different uses. Boss, it's here too. Suddenly, Qing Lin screamed. At the corner of the wall, a 2-meter-tall iron lump stood there. If it was before, Qing Lin would have directly called it iron lump. However, after seeing how terrifying it was in the Heaven Eye mountain range, it was obvious that she was more afraid and respectful. The shop moved, so it naturally followed. Chu Bei's eyes fell on the iron lump. He knew that this was the real Xiao He, not the previous clone. This chair is so strange. Shaking her head, little Ziyin came to the massage chair with the number 9 printed on it and looked at it curiously. However, before Chu Bei could stop her, Ziyin had already sat down on the floor. Bang! Accompanied by a shrill scream. Before little Ziyin's but landed on the chair released a dazzling light. A terrifying force in the light directly sent Ziyin flying. When little Ziyin flew back, she looked at Chu Bei and pointed at the massage chair with an aggrieved expression. Chu Bei could not help but smile and said earnestly, "Some things can only be seen, not touched, and even more so, not sat on." While Chu Bei and the others were visiting the upgraded shop, more and more people gathered around the square outside the mansion. What's going on with this mansion that fell from the sky? Is there an explanation? TSK, you came at the wrong time. If you came earlier, you would have seen the owner of the mansion. They all went in. Why are you all gathered here? Don't you want to go in and take a look? Didn't you see the words on both sides of the door? Those below the Grandmaster level are not allowed to enter. Damn, there's such a thing? I am thinking, has the owner of this mansion reached the Dozone class? You don't say. The owner of this mansion has really reached the Grandmaster level. With a light wave of his hand, the 2 8-star Grandmasters of the Cheng and Lu families could not resist at all. Outside the shop, there was a commotion. Chapter 122. Tianhuang City, Lu Mansion. Inside a large hall, a green-clothed man in a long robe was seated in the leader's seat. A couple of people with powerful auras were seated on either side of him. The green-clothed, long-robed man was the clan head of the Liu clan. Does he insist on placing the shop in the wormhole? The clan head of the Liu clan looked at the red-clothed man kneeling in front of him. He frowned. An elite dozong has actually opened a shop. I really want to know what he is selling. Clan head, what should we do now? The red-clothed man revealed a respectful expression. I will personally make a trip and see just what kind of background he has. The eyes of the Liu clan head hardened. His voice sounded as his body turned into a ray of light and flew out of the hall. Behind him, the other clan heads in the hall also rose into the air and followed closely. A couple of minutes later, the group of people from the Liu clan landed on the green stone square and immediately became the focus of everyone around the square. Brother Liu, it is unexpected that you have personally come. Before the group of people from the Liu clan could enter the mansion, a powerful voice sounded. Soon after, another group of people landed on the square. Brother Chung, your hand is really long. The words of the Liu clan head contained some dissatisfaction. The people who had arrived were the people from the Chung clan. Brother Liu, what are you saying? Although this green stone square is under your jurisdiction, we are only here to see what kind of shop has opened here. I'm afraid that you have no control over this, right? The clan head of the Cheng clan extended his hand and pointed at the All-Heaven shop. The clan head of the Liu clan snorted and ignored the clan head of the Chung clan. Bang! However, just as the two clans were about to ignore the large words on the two sides of the door and directly enter the shop, a loud sound suddenly sounded in the sky not far away. Soon after, two figures swiftly intertwined and appeared above the shop in an instant. Along with the continuous sounds of collisions, terrifying energy surged in the air. Clearly, these two figures were engaged in an intense battle. That is Elder Chihua from the Burning Flame Valley. The eyes of the clan head of the Liu clan and the Cheng clan shrank when they recognized one of the two figures. Although their two clans were the largest in Tianbei City, they were also subordinate factions of the Burning Flame Valley. Therefore, they had more or less met anyone from the Burning Flame Valley who had some status. Who is that black-robed figure? You actually dared to attack an elder of the Burning Flame Valley in the territory of the Burning Flame Valley. From the looks of it, Elder Chihua's situation is not good. Around the square, the onlookers who had gathered were all alarmed by the battle in the sky. They all raised their heads to look at the sky. The Liu clan and Chung clan's attention were also focused on the battlefield. This was especially so for the two patriarchs. When they saw that Elder Chihua was at a disadvantage, they looked hesitant. They wanted to help, but they didn't know the identity of the black-robed man, and they were afraid of offending the power behind him. Moreover, from the looks of the fighting auras, Elder Chihua was a 6-star dozong, while the black-robed person was at least a 7-star dozong, or even an 8-star dozong. On the other hand, they were merely 4-star dozong. Even if they did help, they would not be able to defeat the black-robed man. Soul Devourer Blade. Suddenly, the power of the black-robed man on the battlefield increased by another notch. As he shouted, a black curved blade that was dozens of feet long appeared in front of him out of thin air. Upon closer inspection, this enormous black curved blade was actually formed from tens of thousands of tiny iron chains intertwined together, and within them were densely packed runes the size of fingernails. Shio. The black curved blade shot out explosively and headed toward Elder Chihua from the Burning Flame Valley. Grug. The speed of the black curved blade was too fast, causing Elder Chihua to be unable to dodge in time. All he could do was adopt a defensive stance. Although his defensive do technique had successfully reduced 70% of the strength of the black curved blade, 30% of its strength still struck his body. The most frightening thing was that this black curved blade not only caused harm to one's physical body, but it also dealt a fatal blow to one's spirit. Elder Chihua spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. His body uncontrollably smashed toward the mansion below under the impact of the black curved blade. Bang! A low, deep, loud sound appeared as Elder Chihua violently landed on the green brick road of the mansion. However, the surprising thing was that such a large impact was unable to cause even the slightest bit of damage to the green brick road within the mansion. Elder Chihua has been defeated. Just what is the background of that black-robed man? Is he not afraid of the revenge of the burning flame valley? Although the surrounding people could not see Elder Chihuahua's figure, they could guess that the latter's current situation was not good. The black-robed man in the sky did not leave after seriously injuring Elder Chihuahua. Instead, he accumulated his strength once again. Clearly, he wanted to kill Elder Chihuahua. In an instant, an even more frightening black curved blade was formed in front of him. Elder Chihuahua wiped off the fresh blood from his mouth within the mansion. He frowned tightly when he sensed that he had once again been locked onto. Just as he was preparing to burn his essence blood and self-destruct his spirit in an attempt to seriously injure the other party, a figure strangely appeared beside him. After which, the figure lifted him up with one hand and swung the other toward the black, curved blade that had already arrived in front of him. Chila, the figure that appeared out of nowhere, casually waved his hand in front of Elder Chi with shocked eyes and easily shattered the black, curved blade. The next moment, Elder Chihuahua had yet to recover from his shock when he felt a huge force once again throw him back into the sky. This is my territory and I need to be quiet. If you want to fight and kill, find another place. Soon after, an extremely calm voice sounded beside Elder Chihuahua's ear. Elder Chihuahua looked in the direction of the voice and saw another figure not far away. The figure was looking at him calmly. Look quickly. It's the owner of the mansion. He has also appeared. The onlookers around the square immediately exclaimed when they saw Chu Bei appear on the battlefield. Is he the owner of the mansion? The Cheng clan and Liu clan heads looked at the figure that had appeared on the battlefield. After muttering to themselves, they looked at each other. With their cultivation, they were actually unable to determine the latter's strength. In the sky, Elder Chihuahua recovered from his shock and hurriedly cupped his fists at Chu Bei. I'm Elder Chihuahua from the Burning Flame Valley. Thank you for saving my life. Chu Bei glanced at Elder Chihuahua indifferently and shook his head. I'm just afraid that your blood will dirty my residence. Elder Chihuahua's mouth twitched when he heard Chu Bei's words. He did not say anything else. Mind your own business. Not far away, the black-robed man looked coldly at Chu Bei. His cold voice that was filled with killing intent drifted in the air. Soon after, a large amount of black fog surged behind him, and his aura rose. Is it someone from the Hall of Souls again? Chu Bei looked at the black-robed man. Although his voice was not loud, it was clearly heard by Elder Chihuahua and everyone around the square. Elder Chihuahua looked at Chu Bei with some surprise. He seemed to be surprised that the other party could identify the black-robed man. What? That black-robed man is from the Hall of Souls. Why would someone from the Hall of Souls appear here? Why would he attack Elder Chihuahua from the Burning Flame Valley? After knowing the faction behind the black-robed man, everyone around the square was shocked. Joy flashed in the eyes of the Cheng clan head and Liu clan head. Fortunately, they did not attack earlier. Otherwise, they would have offended a faction that was far more terrifying than the Burning Flame Valley. Since you know my background, why do you still dare to interfere in the matters of my Hall of Souls? The black-robed man stared coldly at Chu Bei. After his cold snort sounded, his body shook. 3 chains soul-snatching. Accompanied by clear clanging sounds, 3 pitch-black chains from the black fog behind the black-robed man let out a sharp cry as they intertwined in the air. After which, they rushed toward Chu Bei at a frightening speed. Their momentum was shocking. Wherever the chains passed, the empty space would shatter inch by inch. Its momentum was shocking. Forget it. I will kill another person. Chu Bei's indifferent voice sounded in the air. Subsequently, he raised his right arm in front of countless gazes and opened his palm. Bang! Just as Chu Bei clenched his palm slightly, the 3 chains that were rushing over suddenly paused. The space around them suddenly became distorted. With a kachid sound, the chains that carried a frightening aura directly turned into a rain of light and disappeared. Dozun. Witnessing this scene, the black-robed man's pupils suddenly shrunk. Shock surged in his eyes. Why? You want to leave? The black-robed man quickly reacted. However, just as he was about to leave, a laughing voice sounded in his ear. Immediately after, before he could do anything, the space around him suddenly became distorted. An enormous spatial strength that he could not resist began to tear his body and soul apart. A sharp cry was mixed with the tearing sound of the spatial strength. Under countless shocked gazes, the black-robed man disappeared into the sunken empty space bit by bit. The miserable cry faded away. The air was dead silent. The square also fell into silence. Swoosh! Countless gazes were subconsciously cast toward Chu Bei. There was obviously more respect in their eyes. As for the Liu and Cheng families, when they looked at the two large words on both sides of the mansion's door again, those experts who were below the Do Zone realm involuntarily stepped back. Thank you, Sir Do Zun. High in the sky, Elder Chi Hua took a deep breath and once again cupped his hands toward Chu Bei. He did not expect that there was a hidden elite Do Zun in Tianbei City. Moreover, he had coincidentally met him. If it was not for this Do Zun in front of him, he would have died in the hands of the Hall of Souls expert. I see that your injuries are not light. Why don't you enter my shop and see if there is anything you need? Chu Bei glanced at Chi Hua Zun's clothes. After nodding his head with satisfaction, he pointed to the mansion below. Sir Do Zun, are you still a merchant? Elder Chi Hua was surprised. However, he quickly said, Sir Do Zun, please bring me there. From his point of view, the things that a Do Zun sold were definitely not ordinary. At this moment, Elder Chi Hua also noticed the green stone path that he had smashed earlier. Seeing that it was still intact, a strange expression flashed across his eyes once again. This mansion was not simple either. Those outside, as long as your cultivation meets the requirements, you can enter. After saying this, Chu Bei hesitated for a moment before adding, those who have over 40 million liquid assets can also enter. Hearing this, the clan heads of the Liu clan, Cheng clan, and the other Do Zongs were stunned for a moment before they stepped into the mansion. A portion of the wealthy Do Wangs and Do Huangs who had yet to reach the Do Zone class hesitated for a moment before following. Chapter 123. Currently, all the products that can be sold directly are here. You can take a look first. After arriving at the main hall, Chu Bei pointed at the shelves by the side and lay down on the chair. Elder Chi Hua nodded at Chu Bei and walked to the side of the shelves. He was prepared to search for the products that were suitable for him. Along with the sound of footsteps, the Liu family head, Qing family head, and other elite Do Zongs, as well as other wealthy merchants, also walked into the hall. After knowing that Chu Bei was an elite Do Zun, the people who entered the hall were all extremely respectful. After that, with Chu Bei's permission, they also began to look at the products on the shelves like Elder Chi Hua. Regardless of whether it was Elder Chi Hua or the Liu family head, when they saw the prices of the products, they could not help but narrow their eyes and be shocked. At this moment, they finally understood why the other party had set the threshold that no one below the Do Zone level could enter. Among the shelves with products, even the cheapest one on the lowest shelf, the sixth shelf, had a price of over 30 million. The higher the grade of the shelf, the higher the price of the goods. Especially when they saw the few goods on the shelf, they couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air when they saw the price. Boss Chu, does this fish really have the effects that are described? At this moment, Elder Chi Hua stopped in front of the eighth shelf and pointed at the bottom shelf. He looked at Chu Bei and asked tentatively. The shelf that Elder Chi Hua was pointing at was a transparent glass shelf that was over 2 meters long. Although the glass cabinet was big, there was only a palm-sized green fish in it. At this moment, the little green fish's mouth opened and closed as it stared at Elder Chi Hua with its round eyes without blinking. Its eyes were filled with provocation. Come and eat me. Beside the glass shelf, there was some basic information about the green fish. Dragon Spirit Fish, Level 8 product from the Gourmet Captive Realm. Those below the Do Zun level who are seriously injured can recover from their injuries in 15 minutes. Their cultivation will also increase. Price: 80 million gold coins. Hearing Elder Chi Hua's voice, the Liu family head, the Cheng family head, and the others also turned their attention to the small blue fish. Just as they approached the transparent glass cabinet, a chill swept over their bodies, as if they had suddenly fallen into an ice cellar. Looking at the small fish in the glass cabinet, the surface of its green scales glowed with a faint silver light. Its round eyes had a hint of provocation, and it swung its tail from time to time. One fish, 80 million. He's still so young. Looking at the price, the Liu family head and the others gulped and opened their mouths wide. This price could no longer be described as sky-high. If they did not know that Chu Bei was an elite dozun, they would definitely have thought that this shop owner had gone crazy. However, it was precisely because they knew of Chu Bei's cultivation base that other than shock, there was also some curiosity and anticipation in their eyes. Small business, honest management. If the product does not match the description, I'll compensate you 100 times the price. Chu Bei was still sitting on the chair as he looked at Elder Chihua and said nonchalantly. Hearing this, Elder Chihua hesitated for a moment before taking off the storage ring on his hand. After leaving 80 million gold coins, he passed the storage ring to Chu Bei. The host has sold the dragon spirit fish. The system has received 800,000 willpower, and the host has received 400,000 willpower. The storage ring disappeared, and the system's voice sounded. Are you planning to bring it back or eat it here? Or do you want to eat it here? Chu Bei pointed at the small green fish in the glass. It would be best if Boss Chu could help to deal with it. Elder Chihua cupped his hands together toward Chu Bei. Qing Lin, arrange it for him. Chu Bei looked at Qing Lin behind him and instructed. After speaking, Chu Bei waved his sleeve, and a complete set of kitchen utensils appeared in the hall. The big blue fish, which was originally in the glass cabinet, immediately appeared on the board, unconscious. Under everyone's gaze, Qing Lin held a special knife and cleaned up the palm-sized dragon spirit fish that had fainted in just a few moves. It's actually golden inside. It's indeed different from ordinary fish. The quality of the meat is obviously several times better. Everyone looked at the fish belly that was cut open by Qing Lin with astonishment in their eyes. The fish meat was golden in color, with a few bright red blood vessels in the shape of meridians. The most special thing about it was that its surface was faintly releasing a hazy light. After Qing Lin skillfully prepared various seasonings, she began to fry the dragon spirit fish in the oil. After a while, a rich meaty aroma wafted out from the oil and gradually lingered at the tip of everyone's nose. It smells so good. I want to eat it too. Little Ziyin sniffed with her nose, and saliva dripped from her mouth. She stared at the dragon spirit fish in the oil with shining eyes. The masters of the Liu family and Cheng family could not help but swallow their saliva. Just the smell of the fried meat was enough to make them drool. Soon, the upper plate of the dragon spirit fish was brought to Elder Chihua by Qing Lin. Looking at the fragrant golden fish in front of him, Elder Chihua could not help but take a deep breath. There was some nervousness and anticipation on his face. This palm-sized fish was worth 80 million. Under everyone's gaze, Elder Chihua picked up his chopsticks and picked up the fried dragon spirit fish. After blowing on it, he slowly took a bite. Elder Chihua, how does it taste? The master of the Liu family, who was at the side, moved his throat and could not help but ask. Elder Chihua ignored the master of the Liu family. After the fish entered his mouth, he closed his eyes. His expression was sometimes melancholy, sometimes intoxicated, and sometimes frowning. He looked like a gourmet who had tasted many delicacies. Elder Chihua, say something. The master of the Cheng family could not help but call out. The meat is soft and tender. It is fresh and fragrant. It melts in the mouth, leaving only a faint meat fragrance lingering in the mouth. Other than that, there is a faint pill fragrance. It is very unique. Elder Chihua's expression became relaxed. He looked like he was enjoying it. Just as he finished speaking, a warm current rose from his lower abdomen and quickly flowed throughout his body. It was extremely comfortable. During this process, Elder Chihua suddenly realized that his injuries from the Soul Devourer blade from the black-robed man from the Hall of Souls were rapidly healing. His chaotic and weak aura gradually recovered under this warm current, becoming stronger and stable again. It really has the effect of healing. After seeing the obvious effect, Elder Chihua could not wait to chew in big mouthfuls. In just a few seconds, the complete dragon spirit fish was completely devoured by Elder Chihua. At this moment, Elder Chihua's aura began to rise. There was an energy fluctuation in the surrounding space. It's really as described. Not only can it heal injuries, but it can also increase cultivation. Sensing Elder Chihua's rising aura, the experts in the hall looked at each other with shock in their eyes. 7 minutes later, Elder Chihua opened his eyes and exhaled a long breath of hot air. How do you feel? Chu Bei stood up from the chair and smiled as he looked at Elder Chihua. It is exactly as described. It might even be better. Elder Chihua's expression was excited. After swallowing the palm-sized fish, his injuries had not only completely healed, but his cultivation had also broken through from the initial stage of a 6-star Do Zone to the advanced stage of a 7-star Do Zone. If he were to meet the expert from the Hall of Souls again with his current strength, he would not end up in such a miserable state like before. Unfortunately, he did not have the chance to meet the expert from the Hall of Souls again. The latter had already been killed by the boss Chu in front of him. Do you want to take a look at the other products in the store? Chu Bei extended his hand and pointed at the shelves by the side. Hearing this, Elder Chihua's expression became a little embarrassed. Boss Chu, none of these products are ordinary. I did not bring much money with me today. I will definitely come and visit again another day. The door is always open. Take care. Chu Bei nodded slightly at Elder Chihua, who was cupping his hands together. After personally witnessing the effects of the dragon spirit fish as described, the Liu clan head, Qing clan head, and the others once again returned to the side of the shelves and began to choose the products that were most suitable for them. An hour later, when the system notified that the will points had reached the upper limit, Chu Bei gave the order to leave. With the support of the experts from Tianbei City, Chu Bei sold a total of 400 million on the first day of business. The system obtained 4 million will points, while he obtained 2 million will points. This was also the upper limit of what he could sell at the moment. Among the products that were sold, most of them were grade 6 and grade 7 products. As for grade 8 products, there were only 3, including the dragon spirit fish. As for grade 9 products, there were people who asked about them, but no one bought them. The Fiery Mountain Range was a continuous mountain range located in the southwest of the central region. At a glance, this mountain range was completely formed by a fiery volcano. It was a uniform bright red color. At the top of some of the mountain peaks, thick white smoke was constantly rising in spirals. Occasionally, there would even be magma flowing out from within. Even in the entire central region, this mountain range was quite famous because it was located in one of the 3 famous valleys of the central region, the Burning Flame Valley. Of course, other than the fundamental factor of the Burning Flame Valley, the mountain range itself had countless volcanoes, causing the fire attribute energy here to be unusually rich. For those experts who cultivated fire attribute, cultivating here would undoubtedly yield twice the results with half the effort. Therefore, even though this mountain range was the territory of the Burning Flame Valley, there would often be experts who cultivated fire attribute techniques who would take the risk to cultivate here. Swoosh! In the distant sky, a long rainbow streaked across. After it landed in the depths of this mountain range, a light film similar to a barrier appeared in a strange manner. After passing through the barrier, there was a huge valley. Looking into the distance, the valley was filled with thousands of buildings. Between these buildings, figures could be seen galloping and chasing, as if they were exchanging pointers. Look, Elder Chihua is back. In the valley, after a disciple discovered Chihua, he exclaimed in surprise. After Chihua greeted these disciples, he flew directly to a fiery red hall in the depths. Valley Master, I am back. Chihua entered the hall and immediately bowed toward the leader's seat. On the leader's seat sat a skinny old man with a head full of red hair and wearing simple hemp clothes. Beside the red-haired old man, a red-clothed young lady stood prettily. A dark red long whip was wrapped around her slender waist, outlining her waist even more alluring. Looks like I will have to make a trip to Tianbei City now and meet this merchant that you speak of. Valley Master, I'm afraid that you will only be able to go tomorrow. There is a limit to the amount that Boss Chu receives every day. At that time, other than me, there will also be a dozong from Tianbei City. I'm afraid that with their financial resources, if they all act together, they will have already bought the maximum amount for today. Just as Tang Zhan was about to leave, Qihua immediately opened his mouth and added, "There is such a rule." Surprise flashed across Tang Zhan's eyes. If that is the case, I want to meet this boss Chu even more. Let's head to Tian Bay City tomorrow morning. Tian Bay City. After the Lu family head, Qing family head, and the others left, the people surrounding the shops in the city square also left one after another. After Chu Bei received the 2 million willpower, he immediately converted it into his cultivation base. He went from a 1-star Do Zun to a 2 stars Do Zun. Chapter 124. The next day, early in the morning, not long after dawn, the Bluestone Plaza was filled with people. On the stone platform, the pedestrians who came from other places through the wormhole all stopped in their tracks. What's wrong with them? They're crowding here so early in the morning. Could it be that someone in Tian Bay City is going to have a duel here? What's going on with that mansion? When I left last time, it was still empty. Everyone in Tian Bay City seems to be looking at that mansion. Could it be that there's something special about it? The group of outsiders had puzzled looks on their faces. Their gazes followed the gazes of the people around the square and turned towards the shops and mansions. At this moment, the door of the mansion was still closed. In front of the door, the Lu family head, the Cheng family head, and the rich merchants who were unable to buy the goods the day before were already waiting quietly. Have you heard? Boss Chu's goods are all sold for less than 30 million. So what if it's expensive? It's all worth it. Look at those who bought the goods yesterday, including the Lu family head and the Qing family head. Which one of them isn't smiling? That's true. Otherwise, why would they come again today? As far as I know, Elder Qihua of the Burning Flame Valley spent 80 million to buy a fish yesterday. F***CK. What fish is worth 80 million? Around the plaza, there was a commotion. Just as the crowd was discussing, a few rainbows suddenly streaked across the sky above the mansion. Following that, a few figures landed in front of the mansion's door. The leader was a red-haired old man. Behind him was a group of people in red robes. The word burning was printed on their robes. Greetings, Valley Master. After the Chung family head and the Lu family head recognized the person, they hurriedly bowed to the red-haired old man. Their expressions were extremely respectful. Valley Master? What Valley Master? Don't you see that Elder Qihua is here too? The leader is naturally the Valley Master of the Burning Flame Valley. What? Why is such an existence here too? Oh my God. He's also here to buy treasures from Boss Chu? Around the square, when the onlookers heard how the Cheng and Lu clan heads addressed the red-haired old man, they were all stunned. Then, their faces were filled with astonishment. When he looked at the red-haired old man again, his eyes were immediately filled with deep reverence. To the citizens of the city, the Burning Flame Valley was what they relied on because this Tianhuang city was under the jurisdiction of the Burning Flame Valley. There's no need to be so polite. Tang Zhan's gaze swept across the Cheng and Lu clan patriarchs as he said, "My purpose in coming here is the same as yours. I just want to see if there are any suitable items. If you are really interested, I hope you can let this old man have the priority to buy it." Of course. The leaders of the two families and the other merchants responded immediately. Creak. With a clear sound, the door of the mansion opened. "Boss Chu, I'm here again." Seeing Chu Bei, Qihua hurriedly stepped forward and pointed at Tang Zhan. He said, "This is my Burning Flame Valley's Valley Master." Chu Bei glanced at Tang Zhan and nodded slightly. While Chu Bei was sizing up Tang Zhan was also sizing up Chu Bei. To his surprise, he was actually unable to determine the other party's cultivation. If he did not know that the person in front of him was a venerable one through Qihua's mouth, he would have thought that the other party was just an ordinary young man without any cultivation. "Boss Chu, may I go in?" Tang Zhan pointed behind the door and asked faintly. Of course. Chu Bei's lips curled into a smile. However, just as Chu Bei finished speaking, little Ziyin, who was beside him, frowned and looked up at the sky. "Ziyin, what's wrong?" Sensing little Ziyin's abnormality, Qing Lin could not help but ask. "I feel an aura similar to mine approaching." Little Ziyin pouted her small mouth. Just as she finished speaking, the space directly above the gate of the mansion cracked open with a ripping sound. Immediately after, a burly figure stepped out from the gap. As soon as this figure appeared, an extremely powerful pressure suddenly descended, directly enveloping the entire bluestone square. Under this pressure, even the faces of Qi Hua, the head of the Liu clan, and the other elite Dozongs turned pale. As for those with weaker cultivations, their bodies began to tremble uncontrollably. Fear instinctively surged onto their faces. Tangjin frowned as he looked at the strong figure that had suddenly appeared in the sky and sensed the aura that the other party emitted. After which, an additional seriousness appeared on his face. "Where are my clan members?" The strong figure had just appeared when a voice that was filled with majesty resounded over the sky like rolling thunder. At the same time, the overbearing aura that it emitted became a little stronger, causing the Do Qi in the bodies of everyone present to begin to be blocked. "Ancient Void Dragon," Tangjin once again confirmed. His eyes were firmly locked onto the strong figure in the sky above the mansion's door. Ancient Void Dragon. He is not a human." The expressions of the observers around the square suddenly changed when they heard the words from Tangjin's mouth. Shock swiftly surged into their eyes. Among the human factions within the Central Plains, the One Hall, One Tower, Two Sects, Three Valleys, and the Square Pavilion were the most famous. There were also 3 overlords among the magical beast factions. They were the 9 Serene Deep Ground Python tribe, the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe, and the Ancient Void Dragon tribe. As the strong and domineering voice fell, the strong figure spread out his arms and clenched his fists. Suddenly, the huge bluestone square shook violently, as if it was about to be uprooted. What is he doing? Around the square, everyone looked at the shaking ground with a panicked expression and retreated one after another. But soon, the strong figure discovered the abnormality. Under his control, the entire square was about to rise into the air, but the mansion that he wanted to take away for little Ziyin did not move at all. It did not even shake a little. Chu Bei glanced at the mansion behind him, and the corners of his mouth could not help but curl up. If the ancient Void Dragon only wanted to take little Ziyin away, and she insisted on refusing, perhaps he would have to use a level 9 item to scare him away. But unexpectedly, the other party was also eyeing the shop. In this case, he did not even need to do anything. In the sky, the strong figure seemed to have noticed Chu Bei's mocking gaze. He snorted coldly and stretched out his right hand. Accompanied by a loud boom, a huge energy claw extended from the strong figure's palm, as if he was going to uproot the mansion. However, when the energy claw was less than a meter away from the mansion, a black shadow flashed past the main hall of the mansion. Bang! The next moment, there was a loud bang, and the energy claw that extended from the strong figure's palm exploded. Then, a 2-meter-tall iron lump appeared in everyone's sight. Look, what is that? It seems to have flown out of the mansion. Around the square, everyone's attention was attracted by Xiao He again. When the Chung family head, the Liu family head, and the others in front of the mansion saw Xiao He, they were all shocked. The day before, when they entered the shop, they saw the iron lump in the corner. At that time, they thought that it was just for show. But now, it seemed that the iron lump was not what they thought. What rubbish is this? How dare you obstruct me? The strong figure glanced at the iron lump with disdain and said in a rough voice. His right hand turned into a dragon claw covered in scales and slammed toward the iron lump. But just as the terrifying energy accumulated in his claw was about to hit the iron lump, the latter disappeared into thin air. When he reappeared, he was behind the strong figure. Hearing the noise around him, the strong figure looked back. Suddenly, his pupils shrank. It was only then that he realized that Xiao He was extraordinary. Just as Chu Bei finished speaking, a figure flew out from the pitch-black hole in the sky. However, compared to his previous high-spirited appearance, his current sturdy figure was clearly in a more sorry state. When he looked at Xiao He again, His eyes were filled with fear. "Why aren't you attacking anymore?" Chu Bei smiled at the sturdy figure and pointed at Xiao He. Hearing Chu Bei's sarcastic words, the sturdy figure glanced at Xiao He again. He knew that he had encountered a tough opponent this time. After calming down, the sturdy figure cupped his fists at Chu Bei. "My name is He Qing, and I am an elder of the ancient Void Dragon clan. May I know who you are? What is the relationship between you and my clan?" "I have nothing to do with her." Chu Bei looked at Ziyin and continued, "But if you want to take her away, she must be willing to go with you. If you want to take her away by force, you are far from enough." Hearing this, He Qing's expression changed, but he quickly returned to normal. "Then can I stay here temporarily until she is willing to return to the island with me?" He Qing pointed at Ziyin. Chu Bei thought for a moment and said, "My mansion just happens to lack a gatekeeper. If you are willing to guard the door, you can stay." Hearing Chu Bei's words, He Qing's emotions, which had just calmed down, fluctuated again. Then he looked at Xiao He, who was not far away. He Qing's aura stabilized again. I am willing to guard the door for you." After saying that, He Qing's figure descended from the sky and appeared beside Ziyin. At this time, Xiao He also disappeared from the sky. "Valley Master Tang, aren't you here to choose goods? Why are you still standing there? Please come in." After saying that, Chu Bei turned around and returned to the mansion. Tang Zhan, Qi Hua, and the others recovered from their shock one after another as they watched the figure gradually disappear into the distance. Then, they quickly followed him. Because he'd witnessed the scene of Xiao He making a move earlier, Tang Zhan was obviously like the Lu clan's patriarch, Chung clan's patriarch, and the others, and he was slightly more reserved. After arriving at the main hall, Tang Zhan went straight to the side of the shelves and carefully checked the effects of each item. When he walked to the 8th shelf and saw the 4th item on the top, Tang Zhan's body trembled slightly and a hint of joy surged in his eyes. "Boss Chu, this is it." Tang Zhan carefully picked up the jade box on the shelf. Inside the jade box was a completely red medicinal pill. As for the medicinal pill's introduction, it was called the Happy and Unfettered Pill. If taken under 9 stars dozone, it could remove all old injuries and strengthen one's physique. Price: 80 million. "Boss Chu, can this medicinal pill really remove any side effects?" Tang Zhan could not help but ask Chu Bei. "If you don't believe me, then put it down," Chu Bei replied indifferently. Tang Zhan was slightly stunned. After reacting, he did not ask any more questions and simply took out 80 million. After paying, Tang Zhan handed the scarlet medicinal pill to the red-clothed girl beside him. Under Tang Zhan's gaze, the red-clothed girl threw the scarlet medicinal pill into her mouth. As the medicinal pill entered her stomach, the red-clothed girl frowned. However, she quickly relaxed and a blush appeared on her cheeks. Wisps of black-gray gas gathered from the red-clothed girl's stomach and finally overflowed from the top of her head. As the black-gray gas overflowed, the red-clothed girl's face clearly became rosy. 15 minutes later, the red-clothed girl let out a long breath and appeared incomparably relaxed. Tang Zhan immediately checked. When he discovered that the wild and uncontrollable fire energy in the red-clothed girl's body had disappeared, a joyful expression surged onto his face. "Boss Chu, thank you." Tang Zhan pulled the red-clothed girl to Chu Bei's side with gratitude in his eyes. "Valley Master Tang, judging from your aura, you have been a 4-star dozun for a long time. Why don't you try my massage chair?" Chu Bei smiled at Tang Zhan and led him to the massage chair. 200 million gold for a 5-minute massage? Even as the Valley Master of the Burning Flame Valley, Tang Zhan was shocked by the price of the massage chair. "You get what you pay for. Since I'm recommending it, I guarantee that you won't lose out." Chu Bei patted the back of the chair. Hearing this, Tang Zhan sized up the massage chair with an eager expression. Clearly, he was tempted. The others who were selecting goods in front of the shelves also gathered around the massage chair, waiting for Tang Zhan's decision. Finally, Tang Zhan made his decision and took out 200 million gold. Then, under the gazes of several people, Tang Zhan slowly sat down. Buzz! The moment Tang Zhan's but touched the cloth of the chair, the entire chair released a brilliant light. Immediately after, 6 mechanical arms suddenly appeared on both sides of the massage chair. They firmly fixed Tang Zhen's head, upper body, and lower body. Tang Zhen instinctively wanted to resist, but he was shocked to discover that his strength was completely suppressed by the strength of the massage chair. In the next moment, the massage chair began to sway. A mechanical arm extended from both sides and rubbed back and forth on Tang Zhen's body. Dong, dong, dong. Amidst the rhythmic knocking, Tang Zhen's initial struggle calmed down. Later on, a satisfied expression appeared on his face. In the end, he seemed to have sensed some benefits. He hurriedly closed his eyes as if he had entered a training state. In the eyes of others, Tang Zhen seemed to have suddenly been forced. He was unable to resist and could only silently enjoy it. Time ticked by. When the massage went on for 3 minutes and 21 seconds, Tang Zhen opened his eyes and exhaled a hot breath from his mouth. He had broken through. His cultivation that had been stagnant for many years had finally advanced and successfully stepped into the ranks of a 5-star dozun. The massage continued. Under the massage of the massage chair, the weak meridians in Tang Zhen's body seemed to have been filled with a strange energy. The cultivation that had just broken through completely stabilized in a few seconds. Moreover, it became even more powerful. Ding! Accompanied by a clear sound, the massage chair stopped shaking. All the mechanical arms also disappeared. At this moment, Tang Zhen also felt the strength that was forcefully restraining him disappear. He felt relaxed. At this moment, his cultivation had already stabilized at the advanced stage of a 5-star dozun. It was only a matter of time before he reached the 6-star. Comfortable. Tang Zhen stood up from the chair and let out a sigh. Valley Master, you broke through? Chihua probed. Tang Zhen smiled and pointed at the massage chair. He nodded and said, although it's only been a short time, it's really wonderful. Even my Dragon Island doesn't have such a magical chair. Sensing Tang Zhen's breakthrough, He Qing's face was filled with astonishment. He walked around the massage chair and began to carefully size it up. Boss Chu, is this chair useful to us too? The Liu clan head, Cheng clan head, and the others couldn't help but ask. It's useful to anyone below the 9 stars dozun level. The weaker the cultivation, the more obvious the improvement. Chu Bei glanced at the Liu clan head and the others and said, with your cultivation, it's easy to increase by 2 or 3 stars with one massage. Hearing Chu Bei's words, the Liu clan head, Cheng clan head, and the others were excited. However, when they thought of the price of one massage, a pained expression appeared on their faces. An hour later, Chu Bei's sales had reached the upper limit again, so he ordered them to leave again. Boss Chu, I'll be back. Tang Zhen clasped his fist at Chu Bei. Before he left, he didn't forget to glance at the massage chair. In his opinion, as long as he pressed it again, there was a great possibility that he could enter the ranks of a 6-star dozun. Uncle Heiqing, is Dragon Island really as fun as you said? After a short period of interaction, little Ziyin had obviously let down her guard against Heiqing. She actually took the initiative to ask about Dragon Island. There was more yearning in her eyes. After seeing the effect, Heiqing naturally worked harder to tell little Ziyin all kinds of things about Dragon Island. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.